fan and one Cowboys fan. One fan of Who Dat and one fan of Dat Win. We're here to give weekly takes, game recaps, bad betting picks, game previews, and Seinfeld references.
Each week, our podcast is brought to you by Saints-Cowboys Immaculate Grid Match. For those unfamiliar with the game from Pro Football Reference, this is a player who played for both the Saints and the Cowboys at some point in their career. This week's episode is brought to you by current Detroit Lion defensive coordinator and maybe potentially future New Orleans Saints head coach, Aaron Glenn. Glenn was drafted in 1994. He was the first-round pick of the New York Jets. Played there until 2001. Then moved to the Houston Texans from 2002 to 2004. Then with the Cowboys, 2005 and 2006. And in 2008, he finished his career with the Saints. I'm Paul, the Saints fan.
And I'm Brandon, the Cowboys fan.
And we're your hosts. Now it's go time.
Yeah, that's it. It's go time. Let's see you lift that.
Mr. Mandelbaum, please.
It's go time.
This one's for you, Pop. It's go time.
It's go time.
You've been married 3 times.
That's it! It's go time!
It's go time.
All right. Few housekeeping items. If you'd like to contact the show, you can do so via email at blessdemboyz, BLESSDEMBOYZ @gmail.com. We're still on Twitter. They haven't shut us down yet.
We've actually picked up a few followers this week.
We have. I'm glad you brought that up. I want to give a shout out to Donnie, the Broncos fan, Andy and Maya, the Bears fans, Blake, the Chiefs fan. There's some friends I picked up. I met them through another podcast. So I appreciate them showing some support. And you know how I know we're getting good, Brandon?
How's that?
I think we're starting to get some bot accounts following us.
See, that's always a good sign. You know, I wanted to tell you this. I accidentally followed one of the bot accounts for a second. I was looking at the app, and I opened it, and I was trying.
Curiosity, eh, Georgia?
I was trying to swipe to look at something, and I hit the follow button, and I was like, whoa, big fella.
The accidental follow.
Yep. So I was like, better unfollow that quick.
If you are a bot or if you're a real person, preferably if you're a real person, you can follow us at bless_dem_boys. That's capital B, capital D, capital B. You can follow myself at Paul Elliott, PAULELLIOTT _316. And you can follow Brandon at Ball from Grace. We are now available to stream on both Spotify and Apple. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a rating, review. Appreciate all the feedback. Tell your friends, tell your non-friends, tell random strangers.
Now, before we get into the football talk, we at Bless Dem Boyz pride ourselves on being able to talk about other things.
But enough about fish. I can discuss other things, you know.
So first, Paul, you were on the road this week. So in the land of the Tennessee Titans, on the ground to see how the fan base is feeling, do a little market research. And so what'd you get up to in the Music City?
Yeah, so my Sunday morning was early flight out of Houston. Had to go to Nashville for work. So got into Nashville, got to the hotel about 10:30, 11 o'clock. And couldn't get into my room yet because it was overrun by UT fans because they had just played the night before. Actually, I don't know if I think, Ray, I told you this. My hotel was literally right outside the stadium.
Yeah, well, you sent me a picture that you were right. So I didn't know if you had just like randomly gone there.
No, I had just started walking from the hotel to the bar where I ended up watching most of the early games. And I literally turned to my left. I had noticed there was a stadium when we drove up, but I didn't realize until that moment that, oh, no, that's Vanderbilt Stadium. Like, that's the, whatever they call it.
Home of the Commodores.
Home of the Commodores, yes. Not Lionel Richie, however.
Not the commies.
Jay Cutler is not a commie, although he is in trouble now with the law. But that's another story. So couldn't get into my hotel just yet. Couldn't get into the room just yet. So they let me drop my luggage, and then I went to a local establishment called Double Dogs. So shout out to Double Dogs. If you're ever in Nashville, need a place to watch some football or any sport really.
We dare you to go there.
No, it's great. It's great. They're great. My only feedback for them is they did not have Dos Equis drink. They did have Shinerbach though.
Oh, there we go.
And they gave it to you in a fairly good sized glass. So shout out to them.
Texas size, right?
Absolutely. So I set up. It was really a perfect setup because there were 8 games right early.
Mm-hmm.
So I got 4 on the tablet, 4 on the phone. And then, of course, they're showing all the games, they're obviously focusing on the Titans game. Titans were playing the Lions. I don't want to talk too much about the games themselves because I know we'll review them later. But so there was I had Titans Lions right in front of me, and then Bengals Eagles was over to my right, and there was a group sitting near there that had a guy in a Jamar Chase jersey who had like a cast on his leg.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if he was like Halloween cosplaying or I don't know what he was doing, but and then he was sitting with a guy who was an Eagles fan who had like a Fly Eagles Fly shirt or something. So I know you'd appreciate that.
No fights broke out?
No. Well, not while I was there.
Oh.
But there was a good mixture of fans. Like there were Eagles fans. I saw I think I texted you at one point. I did see a Cowboys fan. So it was good times.
Did you have any Nashville hot chicken?
I did not. There was a place like walking distance from my hotel that was, I forget the name of it, but it was like hot chicken was in the title. But when I looked it up, I was going to go try it, but when I looked it up, they were closed until today, basically, like the day I was leaving.
Well, that's not going to be good for business.
And it's not going to be good for anybody.
Maybe maybe someone took off a rat hat while they were in there.
That could have been it. So at halftime of the early games, I decided to head back to the hotel, see if my room was ready. It wasn't, so I ended up sitting in the lobby watching the chaotic end to these games that we'll talk about.
You got to see the witching hour.
Basically, yeah. Now, there was one game in particular, and I will talk about when we get there, that I missed the end, and I literally was like, what the hell happened? So we'll talk about that later. So then, and then also I'm trying to catch the beginning of because the Saints started at 3:05.
Yeah, it's not the 3. They didn't have the 3:20 start.
Correct. Yeah. So and I didn't want to miss. I think I ended up missing like one play maybe, and so I got them on, and then I think it was right about halftime of their game is when I was able to get in my room. So I get up there, I get up to my room, watch a little bit of that, and then we'll talk about it, but it wasn't going great. So I decided let me just go to dinner. And so I went, got some dinner, got back to my hotel in time to watch the closing moments of the Bears and Commanders, which I'm sure we'll talk about for reasons. I
don't know. I think we may not cover that one.
Yeah, nothing to talk about there. Excuse me. And then I watched a little bit of Cowboys 49ers. Monday was we had meetings all day, so I did that.
I don't think you really. We'll get into that, but I don't think you missed very much on Monday.
So Monday night we went back to Double Dogs, me and my coworkers, to watch. Well, it was Monday Night Football. There was the World Series, obviously, and then my boss is a big Nashville Predators fan. So they were playing Tampa Bay.
Don't tell him that I'm a Stars fan if you ever happen to come. Yeah, because I don't think the Stars tend to have the Predators number, and so I think it's a little bit of a testy relationship.
Gotcha. So we did that, and then I went back to the. Oh yeah, I whatever I watched of the game of the Steelers Giants at the bar, that was pretty much what I watched. Like I didn't really go back and
turn it back on.
Lock in on it, yeah. And then Tuesday we had an event in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, which is about 20, 30 minutes or so from Nashville.
How far is that from Mount Romeo?
It's across the Capulet River, I guess. I was like, please don't look like an idiot. Trying to.
Yeah, we're getting into Shakespeare references now.
Yeah. Well, hey, we can't talk about other things, right?
That's right.
So then, as I was mentioning to you before we turned the mics on, I was like, all right, this is cool. I got everything set up. I got all the equipment I need to record. Set everything up. I had a nice little desk in my room. I could, get everything set up, get ready to go. I had Mavericks Timberwolves on, watching that, and I could feel myself getting a little tired. So I was like, okay, let me set an alarm just in case I do doze off. And then it got to about 8:15, and that was when my alarm was set for. So I was like, okay, well, I'm good. I'm gonna be fine. And then so I turned the alarm off, and then the next thing I know, I'm waking up. It's 9:30. We were supposed to record at 8:30, and I look at my phone. I have a text from you. He's like, "Are you okay?"
I assumed you had fallen asleep, but I was worried that maybe something more nefarious had happened.
Yeah,
maybe you had gotten caught filming.
Rebels got me. Right?
Or maybe you had you had tried to install pirate cable into your house, and the FBI busted in.
We'll have us listen to the podcast and then like what we were saying. So it's like I'll show you.
Yeah. So we were originally for those of you listening, we were originally supposed to record Tuesday night, but Paul was Newman watching the Yankees game during the broadcast of the Seinfeld premiere. So we're now recording on a Wednesday.
And as I told you before we turned the mics on, the worst part was I woke up. We were like, all right, we'll just record tonight. And then I had to put all the equipment up because I also had to pack because I had already packed. Like all my stuff except for what I needed to record was basically packed up because I had an early flight out of Nashville this morning. So yeah, that was pretty much my last couple of days.
Now you're back.
I did get to watch my two shows, The Penguin, which is really good. I really recommend, even if you're not a
The Penguin is probably one I'll probably want to check out. Because I'm more of a DC guy than a Marvel guy.
You'll definitely like it. But yeah, like I said, even if you're not a comic book fan, and
it's more of a mob show, right?
Yeah, it's more like I mean, I haven't seen The Sopranos, so judge accordingly. But like, I feel like it's more along those lines. I feel like it's more along the lines of a HBO Max prestige TV show than like it's just a comic book show. Like you could probably if you showed someone that show without telling them, oh, this is a DC property, they wouldn't. Difference. I don't think.
So it's probably more like, we talked about Gotham, I think, on the show once, and so it's probably more like an HBO version of Gotham, kind of, right? Because that was
imagine if Gotham was produced by HBO.
Yeah.
And had like that level of
production
detail and that production, yeah. Because Gotham was a pretty good show. I think the wife and I watched season 1, and then we just kind of.
I think we ended up watching to the end. It was good. We liked it. I mean, it was what it was. It wasn't gonna win any Emmys.
Gotham has a Seinfeld connection.
I think I knew
the woman who played Cobblepot's mother, Carol Kane. She is in the Marine Biologist. She's the woman that when the Russian writer throws the organizer out the window.
Yes.
One in the head. That's her.
The Russian writer? Or what is it good for?
Right. So yeah, I watched that. That's got 2 episodes left. So and the cliffhanger for this past week's episode was really good. And then Only Murders in the Building wrapped up season 4 yesterday, and yeah, still, I mean, I could see some people maybe getting a little
tired of it,
get their feelings hurt maybe a little bit about how season 4 ended, but or not their feelings hurt, but they might feel a certain kind of way about it, I guess. But it's still a good show. I just really love how they go into situations that seem very obvious, and they are able to still kind of put twists on things and keep you guessing a little bit. And there's kind of a Seinfeld connection too with Only Murders. In the last 2 seasons, Meryl Streep has been in the show. You remember the episode where Elaine faked it?
Yes. Fake.
And then Jerry says, and then I forget how they get on the subject, but I think he and Elaine go to watch a movie and Meryl Streep's in it. And that Meryl Streep, she's such a phony balloon.
Yeah. So
there's your requisite Seinfeld connection to something. So, well, that's what I was doing last couple of days, Brandon. What were you up to?
Oh, we've been dutifully watching Shogun. We got a couple of episodes knocked out this week. Things really ramping up. We've got we had the 5 families, which one of them deserted and turned into the 4 families, and now they're trying to elect a 5th member to the council, and then the guy who's kind of in charge of the council is kind of taking things over, and so we're about to get a big clash between this guy who's trying to overtake the council of 5, and the guy who kind of deserted to try to run off to keep from getting attacked by everybody else, basically. And so we're inching closer toward that right now. Watched a little Dragon Ball Super, and then this weekend we've got a local coffee shop that's 5 minutes from the house, and they have gaming stuff, comic book stuff, and so they had a little trunk or treat. So they just had a few cars set up, and they were handing out candy to the kids. So we went and did that. They actually had some sports memorabilia there, some old time, the McFarlane kind of action figures they have sports characters, and then they also had. I talked my wife into buying me this as my Christmas present. A Texas Rangers bobblehead of a Texas Rangers legend for good and for bad.
Josh Hamilton?
No, on that team, same team. Very well known. Ended up going on to play for a handful more teams for a long time as kind of a designated hitter role, but was most known for a ball he did not catch.
Michael Young?
Nelson Cruz.
No. Oh, Nelson Cruz. Right.
I can actually talk about that game now since the Rangers won the World Series.
Yeah, it's a lot easier It's I feel the same way about all the Saints playoff woes there towards the end with Peyton and Breeze. It's they had already won a Super Bowl, so at that point it was just okay.
You get one, it feels a little bit. It kind of eases the pain. Adrian Beltre actually kind of talked about it after the Rangers won. He's like, it was so painful for us not to be able to bring this home, but the fact that they were able to do it kind of eases their burden a little bit too. So you can kind of enjoy those players for what they did for the team instead of coming up short. So Nelson Cruz bobblehead. And then this weekend, I also, like Poppy, or like Kramer, made my own pie. Made my own pie. Put it in the oven. I did wash my hands. I did not get sloppy.
Did you put cucumbers on it?
I did not put cucumbers on it. But my children betrayed me this week because I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm staunchly anti-pineapple on pizza.
I don't think I've ever had it, so I don't really have I kind of like Elaine with the English patient. Like I couldn't tell you if it was good or it really sucks.
Let me tell you, I think it sucks. My opinion on this is that it is an abomination in the eyes of both God and man. So I made the pizza. We had pineapple in the house. Well, my wife was trying to give them fruit with just as a side to kind of like have something healthy with the pizza.
Right.
Well, my 4-year-old decided I'm going to experiment and invent this, and so she puts pineapple on the pizza, and of course both of them love it. And so my own flesh and blood, Jerry, have betrayed me.
That's a shame.
It is a shame.
I was thinking of something.
Lost it.
I had it and lost it. No, it'll come back.
All right. So in terms of college football, I feel like I didn't get to watch as much. I had a multi-view on. It just seems like the games I wasn't able to concentrate as much on this week. So I mean, I watched I watched most of UT Vandy. We went to the trunk or treat. I think UT had just gone up 10, and so I was keeping up with that on my phone. Got a little dicey at the end. I mean, it got a little dicey the whole game. Vandy, I don't think Vandy's defense gets enough credit for what they're able to do. I think a lot of the attention's been focused on Pavia, but their defense was tough. Like they gave Texas a challenge. It seemed like Texas was able to move the ball at certain points, but in fits and starts, and it wasn't consistent. And in the second half, they were able to Vandy's defense was kind of able to buckle down and squeeze them. But then the other game that I was actually like really excited about was Notre Dame Navy. We've been talking about this, but that game kind of turned into Notre Dame just kind of ran away with it.
Yeah. They sunk their battleship, Jerry.
They did.
Yeah, it was. I know you and I were both kind of hoping Army and Navy could keep the undefeated streak alive, so that game at the end of the year. Well, I guess potentially the first time they play, as we talked about last week or week before, could be for the conference and maybe for a spot in the
playoff
team playoff. I was looking up on because I put it up. I was tweeting from our account on Saturday. I had probably, I would say, one of the better multi-views for college football this year in the early window. I had Notre Dame Navy. I know that game got out of hand, but Washington Indiana, that was kind of a
It's Indiana that's been really good this year, right?
8-0.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the game day game. That's where they were.
They look like they're on their way to the college football playoff. I don't see how at this point they keep it up.
Yeah. I mean, if they make the Big Ten, so that's the thing with the 12 teams this year, right? So like, obviously, if you win the Big Ten, you're in, just like in previous years. But like, I would think if you get into the championship game in Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, in any of these conferences, and you're at least competitive in the game, like, unless, I mean, if you get blown out, that's one thing, but then I would think you'd have an outside chance of being like an at-large type.
I would certainly think so.
I also watched Nebraska, Ohio State, and then Oklahoma and Ole Miss, which I know you were sad to see. Ole Miss won that game, right?
Yeah, Ole Miss, I think, beat them pretty bad.
It was.
No, I'm thinking of the South Carolina. I'm thinking of the South Carolina Ole Miss game is what I'm thinking of.
I'm looking it up right now. You can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just to bring it back to Notre Dame Navy, I think one of the things is like Notre Dame plays them every year. I think Navy is one of the things is they're a little bit of a different animal than most teams. I will say the one, and I text this to you. Navy's offense is actually kind of fun. Like they're obviously running sort of triple option, but they throw the ball more. It feels like they throw the ball more than they have in the past. And then what they're doing is they're constantly shifting formations, they're running players in motion. They're pulling players on these like exotic run plays. Like they were actually like entertaining. I know they like lost, but I think part of that was also the fact that like Notre Dame, their defense couldn't stop Notre Dame was an issue. And then after they gave up points, they started turning the ball over. And once they got behind, like they don't have the sort of offense that's just going to be able to come back from a large deficit. So they needed to keep it close to begin with. And then they were able to score a couple of times, and then their defense couldn't get off the field. They turned the ball over, and so they just kind of got stuck in like a really bad negative game script that just kind of seemed everything sort of spiraled out of control from there. But they're fun to watch, I thought. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be fun to keep an eye on. I think moving forward for the rest of the season. They interviewed College Game Day interviewed their quarterback, Navy that is, and he seems like a pretty charismatic guy. Like but it's kind of still that Navy offense in a sense of he was their leading rusher too, as well as their. Maybe not in this game, but I know coming in, I looked over the stats before the game, and it was what you would kind of expect from a Navy quarterback, or I guess any Navy or Army.
He had like a 90-yard rush against Memphis or something like that. Like they couldn't catch him. He is fast.
Yeah. So, but yeah. So,
how'd you do on your picks this week?
Yeah. So even Steven this week, I was 5-5. 50-40 on the year, so we're still churning a profit there. 10
games over 500.
10 games over 500. Now, as we transition to the National Football League, those picks not doing as well. But it looks like you and I were both 9-7 for the week this week.
Yep. This is actually, I think this is our best week in a while. It's been pretty ugly out there.
Yeah. And then are we both 56 and 67?
We are. We were tied going into this week, and then we had the same record this week too.
How about that? And that's against the spread, obviously. I found it interesting that I was 9-7 against the spread, but 7-9 straight up.
The Jets continue to be your Achilles heel, huh?
Yeah, they're the big one. So I only have 3 teams correct with the correct records predicted up to this point. Again, we talked about this before. That's going to fluctuate probably as we go through the season. And I meant to write down who the 3 were, but I can't remember off the top of my head. I want to say the Vikings are one of them.
Because they've come back down to earth after that. Which
right? Was it the? I can't remember. I'll look it up. I'll have to look it up later. But for the first time, I believe, this week, I got my upset pick, Rams over Vikings. Really proud of that one.
Yeah, that one was less good for me, though.
Well, yeah, I was going to say I was especially proud of that one considering it was your lock. So,
yeah.
And then, go ahead.
Well, it was Thursday. We're getting the report. I'm starting to feel like a little uneasy about that pick. We get the report that Puka and Cooper Kupp are in. I'm like, man, not feeling very good about this right now. And so, like, I've done that before this year where I've felt my gut saying like, okay, we need to change. Like I think the start of the season we originally had Bengals over Patriots as our lock, and I was like, something feels off, Jerry. Yeah. And so I wanted to change it, and then I just I got too stubborn, I think. So
yeah.
So for the survivor pool, like Kramer, after he sees the woman in the window, I'm out.
Yep. And then I got my lock, Lions over Titans. So my upset picks, I'm 5-1, so I'm actually doing pretty good there. My lock, I'm 2-4. How about, and then for you, looks like you got your upset pick was Eagles over. I totally forgot the Bengals were favored in that game.
Yep. And that's the thing is like their defense is so bad. I was like, there's a chance. Basically how it played out is there's a chance. Like that was a pretty close game, and then the Eagles just pulled away because the Bengals can't stop anybody. So like we talked about, Vikings over Rams did not hit this week, so I'm now 5-1 on locks, 4-2 on upsets. Which for picking upsets, that's not too shabby. We're doing pretty well for picking dogs.
You were undefeated on locks going into the week.
I was because I was using my survivor picks, and I was still alive, in the pool. I'd made it to 7-0 on there until this week.
All right.
Now you ready to get into the games?
Yeah, let's do it. So no teams on a bye this week. So we had 16 games. Starting with Thursday night, we just kind of talk about this one. Cam Akers, current Viking, presented Rams 30, Vikings 20. So I had Rams plus 2.5. Again, it was my upset pick, so that's a hit for me. You missed out on the Vikings minus 2.5. So the Vikings today, as we're recording this, traded for Cam Robinson,
the tackle from the Jaguars, right?
Left tackle. Yeah, because Darashaw, their left tackle, Christian Darashaw, their star left tackle, was injured, and he's out for the season. I forget I think it was lower body injury. Putting him out for the season. So, but I think this. I feel like on surface this looks like two teams going in opposite directions.
Because the Vikings were 5-0, and then they've lost the last two.
Yep.
Now
lost
because they lost to the Lions,
and they lost this one. Now, obviously, the key thing coming out of this game, which is harder, these Thursday games feel like they happen a week, like 2 weeks ago, because from once you get around to talking about it. But obviously, the face mask on Darnold in the end zone.
The Rams can just do whatever they want, right? There's no penalties for them.
I mean, look, if Vikings fans, if you're looking for sympathy, you have come to the wrong Saints fan.
Don't worry, I'll have more to say about NFL refs once we get to a certain other game.
Okay, well,
we talked about this. It's a short week. The Vikings, like their two losses are a short week to a Rams team that has an offense that can put it together at times, right? And then their other losses to the Lions.
And an offense that, oh, by the way, happened to get their two best receivers back at the same time. So, yeah, I'm still not overly concerned about the Vikings. I mean, I guess obviously the Darashaw, that injury would have been a big deal. I think the Cam Robinson trade's interesting to me from the Jaguars' perspective, which I guess we'll talk about them in a little bit. But
do we have to?
I guess they're. Well, I mean, what I'll say is just it feels like that's the Jaguars throwing the towel in, because you're basically just throwing away Trevor Lawrence's blindside protection. We're not throwing away, but I mean you're trading away his blindside protection. So.
Yeah, they seem like they've punted on this season at this point.
Yeah, but back to the Vikings. No, they've got the Colts coming up this week. That's the Sunday night game that got flexed into a Sunday night game, and that's another one that they got to be careful about, right? I mean, we'll talk about it, but yeah, this could get tricky for the Vikings.
Yeah, they're going to need to. They're going to need to get back on the winning side, but having a little bit of extra time will help that at least. They got kind of the mini bye. All right, Sunday. Moving on to the early games, we start with the Eric Bieniemy matchup: Eagles 37, Bengals 17. This played out a lot like I said, like I thought it could, just because the Bengals have no pass rush. The Eagles have a good offensive line. I mean, a lot of times it seemed like Hurts just had all day to throw back there. Like the Bengals pass rush fully functional right now. Looks sometimes like the Cowboys do without their top 4 pass rushers on it. It's just, I don't know. Do you think it's time for us to say, because we talked about the Bengals aren't dead when they started 0-4 or whatever. We said, they still got a chance, but at this point, is it time to do we say this is it? The defense is so bad that we don't think the offense can hold them up.
So the note, so just to piggyback off of that, so they started 0-3. They were 1-4 after that overtime loss to the Ravens, the one that they gave away. Well, where the guy, they couldn't hold the field goal down for McPherson, and then the Ravens came back and won in overtime. Then they had the win on Sunday night against the Giants. And they had 2 kind of unimpressive wins. They beat the Giants, they beat the Browns.
And the Giants win was the Giants win was 10-7, and then they had a late touchdown to make it a 10-point win.
Correct.
And then they beat the Browns, who did not have Jameis yet.
And then this game, it was one of those games, like I kind of mentioned earlier. There's another game we'll talk about later, falls in this category. Like, this game was close, and then you turn away and you look back, and it's like, wait, what happened? It's the Ron Burgundy, that escalated quickly,
right?
Type game. Because it's 17-17 in the third. The Eagles score. It's 24-17. Bengals turn it over on downs, on their own 39.
Well, so they were trying to be a little aggressive there.
Yeah. It's a 4th and 1 on their own 39. They do a pass play to Chase that loses 2 yards. So the Eagles get it on the 37 of the Bengals, which leads to a field goal. Then there's an interception by Burrow that leads to a touchdown, like a 12-play drive for the Eagles. Excuse me. That's now it's 34-17 all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And then there's a fumble by the Bengals. And so, so the second half was basically all Eagles, pretty much.
Yeah, and I don't know if I don't know if I want to draw any conclusions about the Eagles' offense based on this, because they still, when they have their receivers in this one. They had their receivers last week, but they still look discombobulated, or it looks a little stuffy. No. Last week it was Saquon. It was the Saquon game, right?
It was the revenge game. Yeah. And it was the Giants.
Yeah, and so I don't know how much I want to draw from these past 2 games about any definite conclusions about the Eagles' offense, other than the fact that they still have a really good offensive line. They have Saquon Barkley, and
so their Eagles are unbeaten since the bye.
That's 2 games.
But here's their wins. No, it's 3.
3. Okay.
Their 3 wins are Cleveland, which was only 4 points.
Mm-hmm.
That's the game where Cleveland hung around. They had a blocked field goal.
Oh, that's right.
And then the revenge game, the Saquon revenge game, and then this one, and then they host Jacksonville this weekend, and then next weekend's a big one, obviously, in Jerry World.
Yeah, they do not have a particularly tough schedule this season.
Not really.
Mm-mm.
Not for. Yeah. I think they're fine. So one of my coworkers that I met in person this week, she is an Eagles fan, and I said, well, what are your thoughts on Sirianni? And she's like, oh no, I like him. I was like, well, you're the first fan I've met.
Is she from Philadelphia?
Well, she's from Delaware. So she grew up a Jets fan. Her husband grew up an Eagles fan. So she kind of
converted.
I guess converted a little. Yeah, did a little.
She went
to
the Russian Orthodoxy.
Right. But then they now live in Tampa, so they're kind of like Bucks fans too, somewhat. Yeah, it's weird. But
you can't get me. You couldn't get me on the cheer for the team I moved to the city of.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I'm living proof of that. I'm not a Texan. I mean, I don't hate the Texans, but I'm not gonna ride or die.
See, the problem with the Texans, like, I have no emotion toward them because they're in the AFC. Like, they're not.
Right.
We play them usually once every 4 years. We get them this year out on one of those 17th game scheduling quirks. But like, I don't really care. Like, the teams I hate are going to be Washington, the Eagles, and the Giants, right? Like, you stay over there in your AFC and have fun. Texans fans, on the other hand, for some reason consider Cowboys fans like some sort of like we have the plague or something. So that's my only qualm against Texans fans. Usually I have no issue with the actual Texans. Their fans, on the other hand, sometimes the fans are worse than the actual team, right?
Yeah, that definitely is true. Anything else on Bengals Eagles?
I think that's it for me.
Okay, so moving on. East Texas legend Adrian Peterson.
That's right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Where was Palestine?
Palestine.
Excuse me.
Yeah, we say it differently. My joke was, if Kilgore and Henderson and Longview are all in East Texas, Palestine is in Middle East Texas. It really.
That's our show, folks.
Thanks for tuning in.
We ain't gonna beat that one. So Palestine.
Mm-hmm. I actually watched some of his high school highlights this week. Oh yeah, because we were talking about the Polar Express.
Okay.
So they run a Polar Express. Are you familiar with the Christmas book or whatever movie?
Well,
yeah. So they have these set up. I think they're all across the country, but they have one in Galveston and then they have one in East Texas and Palestine. And so me and a coworker were talking about the Polar Express, and I said, "Oh yeah, we went to the one in Palestine a few years ago." And I was like, "Do you know who else is from? Do you know who's from Palestine?" And she was like, "I don't know, somebody who played football." She's British, so wrong.
Correct.
She does not. She's
someone who plays football.
Yes, football. Yes.
Football. But what you call football?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's how we got on the subject of Adrian Peterson.
Fair enough. Well, anyway, he presented a steamrolling. Lions 52, Titans 14. This is a weird one. I missed on this. I had Titans plus 11.5. You laid the points with the Lions, so you get it. So this was, again, I'm watching this game in Nashville, so I'm amongst
the people.
Amongst the people. And this game was 14-14 in the first quarter, and it really felt like Tennessee, like with Rudolph, they had a chance. They had, but then, so of the first 8 possessions for the Lions, 4 of them started in Tennessee territory, either via an interception an interception in Tennessee territory. There was a long kickoff return at one point. There was a long punt return at one point. I think the stat on this game was it's the first game since the 30s that a team wins by more than 30 points while being outgained by more than 150 yards.
You should see Jared Goff's stat line in this one was like minuscule just because of that, right? His completion percentage was 80%. His passing yardage was 85.
So the first drive, Tennessee's defense is good. We knew that coming in, but they were blitzing Goff off the bus. They were just getting in on him. But then, obviously, I feel like the Titans defense is, just from watching this guy, I haven't watched every game, obviously, but watching this game, it feels like they maybe try to overcompensate for their quarterback play.
Mm-hmm.
Like they try to make something happen, and that leads to
Yeah, and having the ball, giving the ball to your opponent in your own territory so often is like no defense is going to be able to hold up against that for too long.
Not ideal.
Yeah, it's not going to be good for business.
Not going to be good for anybody. Cowboy legend Tony Pollard had he's pretty solid runner.
He's having a good season.
He's having a good solid season. Him and Tajay Spears.
It seemed like Pollard's kind of taking the role as the lead back in that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for what they didn't really break the bank on his contract, though. I mean, they didn't
No.
I mean, running backs don't get paid that much anyway, but
right.
Or in comparison to other positions, but
yeah, it wasn't a huge contract.
Yeah, look, real quick on the Lions. I mean, they're still kind of the darling team. They give me vibes of the 09 Saints in that they just find ways to win.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like this game, perfect example. Like Goff throws for 85 yards, and you still win by 38 points. You score 38 unanswered. So,
and that's part of a function of their offense, I think, is that the fact that they've got a good offensive line, they've got two good running backs, they've got a lot of weapons in the passing game, and so they can beat you a lot of different ways. You know, they can play bully ball, they can, run play action, have like Jamison Williams. They've got plenty of trick plays that they pull out every single week. So it's just they've got a million different ways to beat you, and I think that's what makes them probably like the scary team in the NFC right now. Like they've got to be the favorite to win the conference, I would think at this point, just based on the fact that I don't know how much Vegas would price in priors with San Francisco and what they've done over the history, but you got to figure that Detroit's probably creeping up there with how they looked lately.
Yeah, my only, I don't want to say concern, but my only pushback would be if San Francisco gets healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And the Rams, like we saw with the Rams, right? They get healthy and teams start to get hot, and then they maybe catch the Lions on an off day in the playoff, in a divisional round or in the conference championship. But yeah, I mean, week in, week out, the Lions are, I'd say, best team in the NFC, probably maybe the best team in football.
Mm-hmm.
So
they're certainly up there. Okay, it looks like right now the Lions are the favorite in Vegas, followed by the 49ers, and then the Eagles and Packers and Vikings are the next in line. So it's a pretty good drop off from San Francisco to Philadelphia.
Interesting that it's the NFC East representative there is Philadelphia and not the team that's actually leading the division at the moment.
Yeah, I think part of that is the schedule.
Yeah, for sure. So we go from one of the best teams in football to two of the worst. Dave Meggett presents Patriots 25, Jets 22. Boy, I'm glad I didn't fall into the Jets trap like somebody.
Yeah, I cannot quit this team. You know what's funny is I'm going to pick the Texans this week. I'm just going to go ahead and spoil it for you. And this will be the week that they actually turn it around and put together a win because just because I'm never going to get the Jets picks right. That's what I've just decided now.
This is again, I mean, there were a lot of weird games this week, but this was really weird because Drake May starts and he looks good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, putting together. And then I looked up and Brissett's in the game and I thought, well, what happened?
Hey, what happened?
I didn't see Drake get hurt. I didn't see him. But apparently he had a concussion, I guess, or he had something. So Brissett comes in, and luckily for them, the Jets are as dysfunctional a team as has ever existed in NFL history.
And they've still got primetime games coming up. Like, can we flex their Thursday game out of there somehow?
Yeah, talk about Yamaha. It's frightening.
It is. And, If you had told me that the Patriots had won that game, I could buy, like Drake May, who's looked good and had moments, maybe he puts it together and maybe that happens. Losing to Jacoby Brissett is inexcusable. Like, absolutely, you cannot do that. Like, this team is done. Like, Rodgers is done. I'm glad they fired Robert Saleh because obviously, how bad would they have been if Robert Saleh was still the coach? Apparently, he was the problem here, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean,
they might have lost this game by more than 3 points if he was still around, right?
Maybe. I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know. It's
time to blow it up.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens if this continues to go south for them. I don't know if we talked about this when they fired Saleh, but one of the things I wanted to bring up was like, okay, so no matter how the season ends, what's the offseason going to look like for the Jets? Like, obviously, you have the Rodgers factor. Like, what coach are you going to say, hey, come fix our dysfunctional situation? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, who would want to step into that would actually be, like, other than somebody who just wants a head coaching job?
I think I saw somewhere that, like, Rex Ryan threw his name. He's like, I'll come back and coach him. And it's like, okay, Rex.
Oh, I like this idea.
I like this idea.
All right,
you got to move on to the next.
Yeah, so Bryce Pop presents Packers 30, Jaguars 27. I didn't get to watch any of this. This was not one that really popped up. I saw Jordan Love is hurt again, it appears.
So not only was he hurt, it's a groin injury. One of my coworkers that I met this week, or met in person this week, is a big Packers fan. He did tell me Monday that MRI came back with with good news for Jordan Love.
It came back negative. Oh no, negative. Prognosis negative.
Yeah.
No, that's a bit of a deep cut, right? We can cut.
Yeah, that's when George doesn't realize that negative is good.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is also a joke used on The Office.
It is, yeah, because Michael's like, I forgot about that. Was it Kevin?
Kevin's got a skin cancer test, I think.
His skin cancer, and he's like, it came back negative. Wait, don't you have a Kevin impression that you can?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I never actually got to bust it out for the show.
Here you go, big boy.
All right. So I'm going to use the line that I usually use rather than what the episode we're referring to. I work really hard all day. I like knowing there's going to be a break. Most days I just sit and wait for the break.
That's pretty good. And it's appropropriate because the actor is a Packers fan.
Oh, right? Really? Brian Baumgartner, I think.
He's a big Packers fan.
Oh.
Anyway, so Love should be okay, but I mean Malik Willis comes in the game and
they do what they do. So they also played the Jaguars.
Well, the Jaguars come down late. They tie it with like a minute left or so, and then Willis hits a really beautiful wheel route to Jaden Reed.
I did see that was the play that they drew up like on the sidelines or something, right?
Yeah, that's the story that came out. And then McManus, their new kicker, is he with the Jaguars? I know he's with the Broncos.
He was a former Bronco, but he's been with the Jaguars for a little bit, I feel like.
Okay, so he ends up making for the second week in a row, he makes the game-winning kick, and I told my coworkers, like, man, the Packers are luckier than sin. Like, they just, but it's a fine line, right? It's like we talk about, well, one of the next teams we'll talk about here in a minute, like. You have these close games, these like coin flip games, right? And you keep winning. Like, can you sustain that? But with the Packers, it feels like it's something's different. Like I don't know. They
The
feel
fact
like,
that they've had their backup quarterback also is part of it. Is like, okay, they've won close games, but they're doing that with, kind of shorthanded. And like, this is another, like, we talked about LaFleur as one of the Coach of the Year candidates, right? And this just feels like another feather in his cap.
He's getting. I'm hearing that more and more now. Rich Eisen brought it up on his show today about we really need to start having this conversation about LaFleur, especially if the Vikings kind of start to take
a step back.
The setback that we think that they will. All right.
And you were correct. Brandon McManus did play for the Jaguars previously.
Thought so. All right. Julio Jones presents an NFC South battle here. Falcons 31, Buccaneers 26. We both had the Bucs minus 2.5 on this one, so that's a shame.
That's a shame.
I wanted to. Did you catch any of this game?
I caught a few highlights. It just felt like, from what I saw, is like Cousins was able to spread it around to the Falcons' weapons, and then Tampa Bay is just, they've got nobody left, right? And I'm actually impressed that the Bucs actually were able to put up a fight in this game, but it just seems like neither of those teams really have a great defense either.
I guess no team in the NFC South has a good defense, because Saints sure as hell don't, and
well, they certainly looked like they had one for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, fair enough. But what I wanted to bring up with this game, there's a Twitter account called Bijan Mustardson.
Mm-hmm.
I think I retweeted this from our account the other day, but so on Monday he tweeted, "Sorry at Buccaneers, I'd like to apologize for getting 100 yards and a touchdown in our win against your favorite team. Everyone's a winner in my book, so please enjoy this apology coupon for $2 off my delicious gourmet mustard or anything else on bijanmustardson.com."
Yeah, so this is let me step in. This is actually not just a Twitter account. This is actually he has his own brand of mustard.
Oh, no, okay, that's what I thought. Yeah,
I remember it because I think at one point they had it in Pluckers. They sold it in the Wing Restaurant, which is Wing Restaurant started at UT in Austin.
Pluckers?
Mm-hmm. Pluckers is started by UT students in Austin. Eventually, now it's grown. It's in Houston. It's in Dallas. I think it's in Minute Maid. I think they've got it at the Rangers ballpark as well. And so Bijan went to UT, so they had his mustard there as well.
So I just retweeted this from our account, from the Dem Boyz account. The clip that is attached to this tweet is one of the most disrespectful things I've ever seen in my life. It's Bijan's touchdown.
Uh-huh.
And he's running towards the end zone, and this Tampa Bay player is coming at him, and he literally just does the Reggie Bush, like, stop and just
lean back,
and the guy runs right past him.
Whoop. As Chris Berman would say. Whoop.
And he walks in exactly. And he walks in the end zone, and that was kind of the touchdown that sealed the deal for the Falcons. Yeah, for both of these teams. I mean, yeah. So we talked about the Falcons potentially becoming a dark horse, like 1 seed in the NFC. I don't think they'll get there because the Lions are
too good.
But I mean, the 2 seed might be in play.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on what happens in the NFC East. Because I mean, think about it; they've already beaten the Eagles, right?
Right.
And they'll play the Commanders down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So if they keep piling up wins,
we know who the Falcons have this week.
We do, and then we know who they have next week.
Oh.
They have both of our teams back to back.
Oh, so we'll both be.
And I mean, they pretty much have the NFC South wrapped up. They're 4-0 in the division right now.
Yeah,
they've beaten Tampa twice, they beat the Panthers and they beat the Saints, and then they'll play the Saints and Panthers obviously again.
Mm-hmm.
But like if they can stay healthy and if Cousins keeps playing like he's playing,
yeah, it just seems like they're set up well. Just especially the Tampa Bay injuries, just really feel like that's going to be too much for them to kind of overcome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really surprised they haven't pulled the trigger on a trade for a receiver. I'm sure they're making the calls, but I mean, Evans is supposed to be back. Godwin's. I don't think Godwin's coming back this season.
I'm gonna need Mike Evans to get back. Have I told you who my first 3 fantasy draft picks were this year in my main league?
No, go ahead.
So I had the number 1 overall pick, so I took Christian McCaffrey. Second round, coming back around at the end, I had back-to-back picks. So I went 2 wide receivers. I took Nico Collins, and Mike Evans. You know how many points they scored me this week? 0.
The same number of points I scored you this week.
That's correct. That's correct.
Well, yeah, that's a shame.
All right, now we want to get into did you have anything else to add there, Paul?
No, but I think now we're going to get into the fun games.
Yeah.
In the early window.
You blew it, boy! You really blew it!
We're going to get into, so we'll lead off here talking about some teams that really just snatched defeat from the jaws of victory this week.
By the way, could we not have put the Packers-Jaguars in this category?
I guess
the Jaguars blew it.
I
don't know if that. I kind of put that more on the Packers.
Yeah, the Packers won. The Jaguars didn't necessarily lose.
Yeah, but anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No worries. So we'll lead off here with the Josh Rosen matchup. Cardinals 28, Dolphins 27. I don't really know what happened either. This was one that I was like, I feel like I just kind of mentally tuned out of this game too, because it just doesn't feel significant.
So this is the game I was talking about earlier, where I had the 4-4 right going. When I got back to the hotel and I was watching the games, I couldn't get Wi-Fi yet because I wasn't checked into my room, so I had to hotspot off my phone on the tablet, and so in an effort to not have lagging issue, video issues, I just put what I considered the important games on, like the tablet.
This did not make the important game list.
Well, I mean, because by that point I was like, oh, the Dolphins seem in control, like they seem okay. And then when I don't even remember how I found out. Oh, because you sent the list to me of like, hey, these teams all blew it, and you had the Dolphins on there. I was like, what are you talking about? The Dolphins didn't lose. Well, they did.
Yeah, so the Dolphins go up 27-18 with 12 minutes 22 seconds left. Arizona gets the ball back. They drive down, take about 4 minutes off the clock, score a touchdown, and they kick the extra point. They're now down 27-25. Miami gets the ball back. They actually have a decent drive into the Arizona 47. 4th and 9, they punt 36 yards out of bounds. So Arizona gets the ball back at their own 11 with 5 minutes left.
Okay.
This drive takes the rest of the clock. It's 1, 2, 3.
Wow.
How many plays is this? 10, 11, 12. 13 plays, get down to the Miami 16, and then as time expires, kick the field goal to win it. So basically, Miami punts, pins Arizona back at their own 11, and then Arizona basically just eats away the rest of the clock.
Yeah. So, wow, that's crazy. Well, look, and by the way, we should say your first place in the NFC West, Arizona Cardinals.
As we all predicted.
They're all predicted. Because right now, I think every team in the NFC West is 4-4.
I think that's right.
With the exception of the Rams are 3-4 because they had a bye. So
and Arizona has the tiebreaker over San Francisco because they won that game.
Well, yeah, Arizona's 2-0 in the division. They've beaten the Rams and they've beaten San Francisco. And San Francisco is 1-2 in the division because they beat Seattle on Thursday night a couple weeks ago. But yeah, this for the Dolphins. I mean, I really thought with Tua coming back, I was like, well, because here's the thing: if the Dolphins had won this game, then they'd kind of be in the middle of this AFC muddled playoff picture.
Yeah, sort of middle class, right?
Yeah, but now, if you look at the AFC East, Buffalo's 6-2. Everybody else is 2-5 or 2-6.
I think Buffalo's going to win that division.
Yeah, I would think so. And Buffalo is 2-0 in the division right now because they've beaten the Dolphins, and I guess they beat the Dolphins twice. Well, I don't know. Not a concern right now, but yeah. So for the Dolphins, I mean, as long as Tua is healthy, that's the big thing.
Right.
Like, Tua came out healthy. Looks like he did fine.
That helps their running game too, right?
Yeah, of course. And then obviously for the Tyreek Hill fantasy owners, they can rejoice that. Which I don't even know how. Like I said, I didn't pay attention to this game that much. But good for the Cardinals. I mean, they're still in the mix. We'll talk about I guess we'll talk more when we get to the 49er game. But like the NFC West right now feels like it's up in the air. Mm-hmm. Like it's anybody's division. Maybe the Cardinals can at least make it interesting for the next. Like I said, they're 2-0 right now in the division, and I think they have a division game this week. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how that plays out.
Yep.
All right. Next up, we've got Eric Zaire presents Browns 27, Ravens 24. Paul, you wrote that this was the Jameis experience.
It's Browns 29.
Sorry, what did I say?
You said 27.
I don't know why I said that. Browns 29, Ravens 24. I don't know how to read numbers.
29-24 is a odd score, I guess. Yeah, Jameis experience. So the Browns are driving to take the lead. He throws the ball directly to Kyle Hamilton, who just drops it. Like
he must have been surprised, right? Why is he throwing it to me? That's the only reasonable explanation here.
And literally, it's if Kyle Hamilton holds on to the ball, the Ravens are 6-2, and everybody's singing their praises like they the week prior. But then the very next throw, Jameis finds Cedric Tillman on a bomb touchdown play that puts the Browns up, and then Ravens can't answer on the comeback. The way I'll go back to Rich Eisen on his show today. The way he put it is like you can't win them all unless you're the Chiefs, I guess. But so for the Ravens, like I'm not really concerned. I mean, there are concerning things.
They do this though, right? Every year, like they had the Raiders game week 2. Like every year they have like a couple of games where they just like lose their minds, and it's like a game against Jameis Winston is basically the perfect environment for that.
If you look at their 3 losses, so obviously they lost to Kansas City night 1, right, the Thursday night game. And then the other 2 losses are the Raiders and the Browns. It's just like, to your point, it's like what do you but in between that they steamroll the Cowboys, they steamroll who did they beat? Who's the other NFC team they beat?
They beat Washington, but that was a 7-point game.
Yeah, that one was close, but there was another one where it was like they just destroyed
whoever they were playing.
Whoever they're playing, but again, I'm not.
Well, they did.
I'm
They
not
also
concerned.
they also had that close win against Cincinnati where they probably could have lost to.
We talked about that earlier.
Oh,
Yeah.
they steamrolled Buffalo. Maybe that's who you're thinking of.
So that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, they steamrolled because that was the game. That was kind of a buzzsaw game where Buffalo was coming in, Baltimore was coming off
2 losses. No, 3. The Dallas game.
They had the Dallas game, but it was one of those where like Buffalo was undefeated, I think, at that point, but they were going to Baltimore, and that was a Sunday night game, and Baltimore just blew their doors off. Mm-hmm. I'm not concerned about the Ravens. However, their defense, we've talked about this already in previous weeks. This is not your dad's Baltimore defense.
It is not. You can move the ball against them a little bit.
Yeah, so that's something to keep. And for the Browns, look, I'm happy for Jameis. I really hope that. Just think if they had done this a month ago when they should have.
Right. Basically,
so,
they have no excuse now. You can obviously see how different the offense is now with Jameis compared to what they were getting before.
So no matter what happens in 2025, I just hope Jameis does well enough where he can. If it's not with Cleveland, maybe he gets a starting job somewhere else. I mean, who knows at this point? But Jameis just feels kind of like that. I'm trying to think of another quarterback that kind of had this career path. It's kind of a
Geno Smith sort of thing.
Maybe. But the thing was, like, Jameis threw for 5,000 yards with Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like he wasn't. I mean, he had the 30 and 30 season, but like, I don't know. I think we've talked about trying to figure out who the Forrest Gump of quarterbacks are. And he might be the contender because like he's just
his pregame speeches.
Right. He goes from Heisman Trophy winner, first overall #1 pick. Has those seasons with Tampa Bay. He goes to backing up Drew Brees, right? He becomes the successor to him.
He had a leg injury that he blew out his knee one year too, right?
21, the year after Brees retires, the Saints are 5-2. Oddly enough, on Halloween they beat Tampa Bay, but in that game, Devin White does a horse collar tackle on Jameis. He tears his ACL. Mm-hmm. And the Saints have to go the rest of the season with Trevor Siemian as the quarterback.
That's a bit of a step down.
And then that was also the season where there was a Monday night game where Ian Book had to start because everybody had COVID.
The Ian Book game.
I don't know. I wish, like I said, I wish him the best. So.
Yeah, hopefully Jameis is able to, keep chucking for him.
All right, moving on. Everybody's favorite ESPN analyst, Dan Orloff.
Everybody.
Yeah, who's everyone?
Not Cowboys fans.
Yeah, he presents Texans 23, Colts 20. You talk about this game for a second here. I'm gonna pull something.
Yeah, so this was an interesting game. I mean, the Texans had beat the Colts by 3 the first time they played. The first time they played, Richardson hit a couple of bomb passes down the field. It's just kind of the same thing. The Houston offense still doesn't quite know what it is without Nico. They still need him. It's not going to get any better right now, though, because they just lost Stephon Diggs in this game, who is now confirmed to be out for the rest of the year with an ACL injury. But they actually threw the ball more than I expected them to in this game. I expected because in the first game they just basically the DeForest Buckner return might have something to do with that, but in the first game, Houston basically just lined up, handed the ball off, and just ran the ball down the Colts' throat. They didn't do that in this game, so Stroud ended up passing a little more, but it just didn't feel like I said, the Texans' offense is just kind of clunky, especially without their number 1 and now I guess number 2/3 wide receiver. But of course, the really interesting part of this game, which everyone wants to talk about now, Anthony Richardson decides he is too tired to.
So that's what I was pulling up here. So after the game, Richardson. This was from Mike Chappelle.
No relation to Dave.
I don't believe so, no. Anthony Richardson at the podium, why he came out, quote, tired, ain't gonna lie. This was retweeted by Seth Payne, and Seth Payne retweeted and quoted, he should consider lying. And we may have a little fun with this later, but I mean, look, let's just kind of like the Cleveland situation. Like, let's just be honest. If Flacco's playing this whole game, I think the Colts win.
Maybe Richardson was too tired because he threw too many incomplete passes. Maybe if he completed more of them, he'd have a little more energy.
Did you text me at one point in the game and said, do not look at the stat line?
It was the Yamahama Fright Night doesn't even begin to describe what it was. He at one point, I think he was like 1 of 9 or something, and then I think he completed 2 passes at one point, and then he had one.
Second completion was a touchdown.
Oh yeah, it was that one where one of the Colts receivers actually got past the rest of the defense, and he actually managed to hit him. And then
I remember that.
And then he threw another pass that got intercepted. So at one point he had 2 completions to his own team and 1 completion to Houston, and that was the number of. I mean, you're going to move on to Flacco because this is you cannot run an offense like this, and you're moving on to Flacco for the rest of the year. But can you? Is Richardson, because he was out all last year with the injury, most of last year. But
he started. It's kind of a similar situation, right? He started, I want to say 3 games, got hurt. They brought in Minshew. Minshew got him all the way to that last Saturday against Houston, and basically a play-in game for the playoffs. And then and then we talked about what's happened this season. Trevor Sikkema, who I've quoted before on the show, hosts the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. He's a University of Florida alum, so he obviously is familiar with Richardson, not only from a draft process, but he watches the Gators, obviously. He tweeted out something kind of interesting. He said, if this is because of what Richardson said about taking himself out, if that's the reason you're doing this, then I get it. It's understandable. But if you're taking him out because of the style of play, you knew what you signed up for when you drafted him, right? This isn't Shane Steichen was the head coach of this team last year when they drafted this guy. And I'm sure he looked at Richardson and said, that's Jalen Hurts. That's going to be my.
And that's another question is how much input did he have on that pick, right? Did he get to make the call, or is this a GM pick?
That's a good question. Because that was also the year, obviously, the Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud. So I don't know. I think Flacco gives them the best chance to compete right now. But it kind of goes back, and we'll talk about this with another team here in a second. But what do you want to be, right, as a team? Do you want to potentially try to set your future up, or do you want to just say, look, we have this window where we can maybe make a run at a playoff spot, maybe even a division? Like I said, if they had won this game, they technically would have been in first place in the division, right? Because their record, they had a better record than the Texans, and they're not out of the playoff chase. I mean, they're now two down to the Texans for the season. That's not going to help, but
that's not going to be good for business.
No. So but what's going to be more interesting to me moving forward is, and you kind of bring this up in the notes here, is how do they salvage this with Richardson moving forward?
Yeah.
You know, like,
do you just hope that like a full off season and maybe some time on the bench is like what he needs to like? Does he just need more practice reps? Is that the problem here?
And like, I don't think Flacco's on a long-term deal, right? I mean, like,
he couldn't be. Yeah.
Like, Flacco could easily at the end of the season say, you know what, I'm good. I've got my Super Bowl. I've got my comeback player of the year. Like, I'm just gonna go
right off into the sunset.
Right off into the sunset, and then you're SOL a little bit if you're the Colts. So, speaking of SOL, going to the late games here, Darren Sproles, who I still have his jersey hanging up in my closet here upstairs. He presented Chargers 26, Saints 8. And that's 8 by a safety and 2 field goals, boys and girls.
Did not get into the end zone.
Did not get into the end zone. A weird note here. I don't know if it's weird. I found it weird. Because when I saw the score Sunday night, I'm like, that score just feels familiar.
Uh-huh.
This is the third time this season the Saints have given up exactly 26 points.
That's a weird score to give up that frequently.
Well, because if you think about it, 26 is 2 touchdowns and 4 field goals.
Uh-huh.
The reason this came to mind, because if you recall the Atlanta game, which they lost 26-24, I believe, that was the game where they gave up 2 touchdowns, no offensive touchdowns. That was a muff punt and a pick 6.
Mm-hmm.
And then Atlanta's kicker, who apparently now can't make anything. He missed one against Tampa the other day that would have sealed the game for him, basically. But
he used up all his good energy.
Whatever. But yeah, they gave up 26 to the Falcons. They gave up 26 to the Chiefs, which Mahomes didn't throw a touchdown in that game because he went almost all of October without throwing a touchdown. And then this game, they gave up 26 to the Chargers. The Nathan Shepard play. Did you see this? I didn't
see this, so I was like curious about
it. So Shepard is on the ground. He's got Herbert's throwing the ball, or Herbert doesn't have the ball, and he's got Herbert's leg, and he like twists it, like. And the line, I forget the lineman's name from the Chargers, but
wasn't Joe Alt.
It was not Joe Alt, it was somebody else, and he basically gave Shepard the business. And when I say gave Shepard the business, like I thought he might get kicked out of the game because he just like jumped on him and like almost threw hands on him, which he should have, because it was just a. Well, I guess put in the notes, Shepard got what he deserved, and like I get another indicator of Dennis Allen has no control over this team. Like, I feel like if that was, well, people are going to say, well, Sean Payton had Bounty Gate, so what do you know? But anyway, it was no bueno from my standpoint. So for the Chargers, I feel like this was just a game they had to. I don't say had to win, but it's like if you consider yourself a playoff contender, you don't lose to a Saints team that's starting Spencer Rattler, and then they then go to Jake Haener, which I think that was just more of a. I'm kind of surprised they didn't start Haener, honestly, because
Rattler's kind of starting to. He had some good moments. I haven't gotten to see as much lately, but it.
Yeah. He just doesn't. He looks like you would think a 5th round quarterback pick would look. Now the optimism going into this game was Taysom Hill was back. They got Cesar Ruiz, Lucas Patrick was back.
Olave played, right?
So Olave played. He almost got another concussion. Like that's the one thing. Rattler throws like these medicine ball, like these hospital balls, or what we call them. Because like he threw under Olave and it was like over the middle, and I don't remember. It might have been Derwin James, just pops Olave like, and it looked like the hit that knocked Olave out in the Tampa game. But Olave was okay; he came back in the game. But then like Marshawn Lattimore ends up with a hamstring, Kendre Miller, who had been injured pretty much all season, he comes back, has a couple nice runs, and then he injures his other hamstring. Well, he had a hamstring injury, came back, then he injures his other one in this game. So, look, for the Saints right now, it's just – I mean, Carr's going to be back this week, but as someone pointed out on Twitter, like, what good does that do?
Yeah, like what?
Like, even if you beat the Panthers, you're going to be 3-6. And then, okay, so like, even if you run I even went this far. I was like, okay, let's say they ran the table. Like, best case scenario, right? They run the table, they finish 11-6. Mm-hmm. Then what? Okay, you make the playoffs. Let's say you host, I don't know, one of the teams, NFC South team, NFC North teams. You host Minnesota or Green Bay, and then you get your butt handed to you. All that's doing is buying you another year of Dennis Allen's incompetence.
Yeah, you'd rather just at this point you're done with him, just get Allen out of here as fast as possible.
But like I just don't know. Like, Mickey Loomis is, I'll give him credit for like being loyal. Mickey says, but like, man, he's watching the same games we're watching, right? Like,
maybe not. Maybe he's watching different games. Maybe that's his problem.
He did come out on a radio interview and say, like, we look beyond the results, but then Dennis Allen in his press conference is like, well, it's a results driven business. Okay, well, what is it? Like, because I'm gonna tell you right now, if it's results driven, the results ain't there. So
see, they're looking beyond the results, and so that's why the business has gone off the rails.
Yeah, but for the Chargers, they're in that the AFC mix with everybody else.
And Harbaugh's basically done what we expected him to do, which is, turn the team around. All right. Anything else on that one, Paul?
Nope. We can move on.
All right. Anthony Hargrove presents Bills 31, Seahawks 10. It just felt like Buffalo kind of had their way with Seattle. They just kind of beat them, punched them in the mouth. Seattle really just never got anything going on offense. James Cook lit my fantasy team up as well. I don't know. Seattle's one of those like confusing teams. Like, you never know what you're going to get from week to week, and it feels like they're one of those teams that they can beat the bad teams, but when they play someone who's more elite, who's got real playoff aspirations, they just kind of break down. It's just, and they don't quite have the answers. I think one of the things I heard on a podcast this week was like they knew kind of what they were going to get in the run game, and if Seattle was trying to keep those, they were either going to rotate a safety down, they were going to do this, and if they kept those safeties back, then they would just smash them in the mouth. But basically that's what Buffalo did, is they had answers for whatever Seattle wanted to do on defense.
Yeah, this is another one. I was watching it, and there was that play where Allen fumbled the ball forward, and I was like, because at that point I think it was still 10-10, or it was in like Seattle was still in like striking distance, and then I focused a little more on the Saints game, and then I looked back over and it was like, wait, what happened here? Like, to your point, they kind of just dominated the game. I think Buffalo's kind of flying under the radar a little bit in the AFC. They've got a big game with the Chiefs coming up here in a couple of weeks right before Thanksgiving.
That'll be a fun one.
So that obviously will be a litmus test, I would say. But yeah, I've said this. I think I've said this to you. I feel like every fan deserves the opportunity to see their team win a championship at some point in their lifetime. And Buffalo fans, I think, are at the top of the list. I mean, they had the 4 straight years of Super Bowl agony. Obviously, you know about that because
Oh, Super Bowl ecstasy for me.
Yeah, 2 of them were in your favor. But I really think this team, and I really I'm happy for this team, especially like because coming into the season it was like kind of a make or break year for McDermott,
Mm-hmm.
And a little bit of make or break year for Josh Allen too. And it looks like they've kind of got things going in the right direction. We mentioned Joe Brady last week when we were talking about
Potential head coaches.
Potential head coaches. He's definitely doing a good job running that offense. Yeah, I'm just interested to see where they go. Now, obviously, we know. I think at this point we know they're going to be in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But we even saw last year, like if Kansas City has to go to Buffalo, Kansas City still can beat them.
Right.
So at this point, it feels more like for Buffalo, and obviously they made the trade for Cooper, which seems to be working out.
Yeah, it feels like they're still working them into the offense, which is kind of to be expected.
Right. And rookie Keon Coleman is long. Dalton Kincaid, which helps my fantasy team because I have Josh Allen and Dalton Kincaid. So, yeah, I'm interested. I really am interested to see. I really think Buffalo can go at least to the Super Bowl this year. I think the biggest obstacles there in Kansas City.
I think
We'll see.
I think it would do them good even to just beat them in the regular season, just to get over that mental hurdle. Like it's one of those, it's like one of those boogeymen kind of things.
I don't disagree, but I've always had this thing about it's hard to beat a team twice. Like the Saints when Brady went to Tampa Bay that first year and they swept the Bucs and then lost to them in the playoffs.
Right.
Like I know those are weird. The weird things happen, right? Especially in the playoffs. But like I don't know. I think I think Buffalo's in a good position. They just need to stay healthy. Just keep on keeping on, and they'll be a contender when it comes time. All right, let's move on here. Nothing else about
Nope.
that? All right, so let's move on to Rex Grossman presents Commanders 18, Bears 15. Yeah, kind of a neat little ending to a game, I guess.
The game was kind of ugly up until that point, right?
So again, going back to my travels this week, when I got back so I kind of kept an eye on it. I have DeAndre Swift on my fantasy team.
Yeah, well, DeAndre Swift lost me the fantasy game this week. So
at one point I get a notice that says DeAndre Swift 60-yard touchdown run or whatever. And I was like, oh, cool. And it actually ended up winning my league or winning my game because right before the Sunday night game, I got a notice is like, you're winning by 1 point. And then I looked, and the person I was playing had nobody left, and I had nobody. Like, all right, cool. But yeah, so I get back to the hotel. I went got something to eat. I get back to the hotel, and just in time to see the Bears score to go ahead. And I was like, all right, cool. And then, here come the Commanders, and Romo spot on the call. Like, run the 12-yard out route, which, by the way, Commanders, don't be afraid to tackle him in bounds so he can't stop the clock. I'm sorry, Bears, don't be afraid.
Just terrible coaching all around on that last drive, right?
And then on the last play, I mean, obviously, the Hail Mary, but former Cowboy and Saints legend Scott Shanley was on Twitter. He's like, just blitz him.
Yeah.
Like, don't even give him.
That's the thing is I feel like we've learned this enough. Like, you don't just send 4, you send pressure. And
well, apparently they had a spy. They had somebody spying on Daniels, which like, what's the purpose of that? Like, he's not going to run for the touchdown. So, and then obviously the Tyreek Stevenson video that came out afterwards of him jaw jacking with the fans
Absolutely.
and not paying attention.
Brilliant work on that.
Yeah.
Just kudos to him. Just really great work there. And then the other thing was, I think the Bears really had no business winning this game anyway, right? Like, they kind of were lucky to even be ahead. So that it feels like, from a conscience standpoint, like from who deserved to win this game, it was probably the right outcome. But just how we got there was little. The person who caught the touchdown pass, right? The Hail Mary.
Remind me?
Huh?
Remind me.
It was former Cowboy, Noah Brown.
Oh, okay. Well, former Texan too, right?
I believe so. Yeah, that's right. Put that in our immaculate grid list.
One thing to your point about like kind of karma and like the little bit of the game I did watch before the end, the Bears just seemed kind of like they weren't gonna win this, and we had talked about this before. Like, all the Bears wins up to this point were against teams with one win, like the Titans, the Jaguars. And I texted you right before the Hail Mary, and I said, if the Bears pull this off, this is a big win for them. Like, to actually like step up, in competition and like go on the road and win a game like this. And, so I'm sorry, Chicago. I jinxed you. But by the way, just don't be afraid to knock the ball down either. Too.
Yeah, it's not volleyball. You're not trying to spike it.
Yeah.
You're not trying to. You don't need to set it before you spike it. You just spike it.
Right.
That reminds me. Do you remember? Probably the most amazing Hail Mary play I've ever seen was Texans Jaguars, probably early 2000s. Houston is up.
Okay.
And so Jacksonville's got the ball. They throw a Hail Mary, and the Texans player actually goes up, jumps up, spikes it down like a volleyball shot, like both hands, and spikes it right into the arms of a Jaguars player who's running forward.
Yep.
Makes the catch, and then actually, like, that is the most unbelievable Hail Mary I've ever seen, just because of the way.
Was the Jaguars player that caught that, was it Cecil Shorts?
That sounds right. But
I got to meet him once.
Oh, really? How was he?
He's a nice guy. Yeah, he came to a company event at my previous employer because he played for the Texans at one point too. He played for the Jaguars and the Texans.
It was actually so Glover Quinn for the Texans is the one. David Garrard, quarterback for the Jaguars, threw it up. Houston defensive back Glover Quinn batted it down into the arms of Mike Thomas.
Not the Michael Thomas who played for the Saints.
Not that Mike Thomas.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, yeah. So exciting game there. Rounding out got two more games here in the late window. Cragen, excuse me, presented Broncos 28, Panthers 14. Not much to say here.
The Panthers are bad.
I do think the Panthers are bad. If we say that, they'll probably beat the Saints this week. But and then also to make it even worse, they just traded Deontay Johnson. We didn't talk about this with the Ravens, but they get Deontay Johnson now to add to Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman. So some reinforcements there. And then Bryce Young gets the start because Dalton was in the car accident earlier in the week. Dalton was back at practice today.
Seemed like
but it looks like.
I was going to say, does it seem like he's on pace to start, or is it?
Analysis says they're going to give Young the ball this week against the Saints, which the Saints.
Lucky you.
Kind of gave him I mean, listen, I am all for the Andy Dalton revenge game, and then in 2 weeks, the Jameis Winston revenge game. Because here's the thing, the Jameis Winston revenge game is right before the bye.
You can fire a coach.
I'm all for I am all for Jameis Winston putting the nail in the Dennis Allen coffin. But to talk about the Broncos real quick, I saw somebody say put up quarterback efficiency rankings for week 8, and Bo Nix was towards the top.
That's what happens when you play the Panthers, right?
Yeah, fair enough. I'm trying to give the guy some credit here.
So there's a podcast based out of Memphis, and the host said she was talking about Bo Nix going. She's like, I'm all in on Bo Nix this year. Like, I think she took him as a backup fantasy quarterback, and so she's like, hey, he's got a chance. Sean Payton as his coach, and so ever since then, it's basically been every time Bo Nix does something terrible, she's like, I have to apologize for my comments earlier in the year about Bo Nix. And so it's just become kind of a running gag, and so every time Bo Nix does something bad, it's just kind of a running gag. So I kind of like him being the butt of the joke.
Do you want to know Bo Nix's? Do you want to know his stat line for this game? 28 of 37, 284, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions.
That actually isn't. That is a good stat line.
Now, what helps him is the Broncos as a team ran for 102 yards. Jaleel McLaughlin had 47 yards on 8 carries. Javonte Williams had 44 yards on 17 carries. Of course, Javonte Williams runs for 130 yards against the Saints and
disappears into the ether after that.
Yeah, so good for the Broncos. They're still in the mix. Panthers, help me out this week. That's all I can say. And then you want to take the next one?
All right. Derek Johnson presents Chiefs 27, Raiders 20. This was kind of a late. The Raiders tacked on some points late, right?
I just noticed it because I put bad beat for me because I had the Chiefs, and then you put
that's beat. Right, back door. Just seems like that.
Well, yeah, because it was the Chiefs were up. So what would that have been 27-13, right. And it was looking good for your boy, and then all of a sudden they give up a garbage. Let me see when the Raiders scored. The Raiders scored with 2:03 left in the game to make it 27-20, and then the Chiefs just the
Chiefs just don't seem interested in blowing anybody out right now, right?
Well, this was the story behind this game was the whole Kermit the Frog thing with the Raiders. Did you hear about this?
I have not heard about this. How did I miss this?
Oh, okay. So this goes back to training camp. One of the Raiders, I think it was one of their corners, one of their defensive backs, basically, did the comparison of Mahomes to Kermit, and even had I think he mentioned that they had a Kermit the Frog puppet or something in the locker room that they referred to as Mahomes, and Mahomes was asked about it at the time, and he said it'll get handled when it gets handled, and it got handled because
with a one possession victory, it has been handled.
One possession victory, and Mahomes had 27 to 38, 262, 2 touchdowns.
Threw 2 touchdowns. That is big for him this year.
Well, that was his first 2 touchdowns in the month of October because he had not thrown any. Kelsey kind of getting back into form, 10 catches, 90 yards. Longhorn legend Xavier Worthy, 4 catches, 37 yards. So, yeah, look, they're just look. I mean, they're next level, right? We talked about the Lions finding ways to win. The Chiefs are just challenging themselves at this point of how can we win this game? What can we do to win this game? Are we going to win it by, throwing the ball all over the field, or just grinding out a win against the Raiders here? So, I don't know. We talked about it last week, and I put a poll up that not many people voted in, but that's besides the point. They're in prime position to.
I mean,
continue this winning
Yeah, they've
streak.
only really got
So,
the Bills to challenge them, right?
yeah, so I mean, they have this week. It's Monday night against Tampa, home against Tampa, then home for the Broncos on a short week, at Buffalo, at Carolina, home Raiders on Black Friday. Then their second game against the Chargers at home, at Browns, home Texans on the Saturday before Christmas, at the Steelers on Christmas, and then at Broncos to round out. So there are a couple of landmines in there for sure. But
divisional games are always tough too.
Yeah, that's why I asked Ross Jackson, who's the Saints Locked On Saints guy. I said, what do you think? Like, he said, yeah, it'll probably be some random bullshit that they lose.
That's right. That sounds about right. All right.
You want to take?
Ken Norton Jr. presents the D's Nuts game of the week. 49ers 30, Cowboys 24. You know, I actually felt pretty good about this game going into halftime. Cowboys were up 10-6. They'd contained the offense somewhat. It was sort of a bend don't break game, which is fine when you're playing without all the players. They were still without Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Deron Bland's not back. You're still missing Kalen Carson. You're missing still a good chunk of your players. So it felt pretty good. But then in the second half, San Francisco turned. Well, not even in the second half. The third quarter was really what killed them. Just Donovan Wilson could not keep up with George Kittle on those crossing routes. Kittle was running a lot of just like little stick routes where he'd take one step outside and then cut across, and Donovan Wilson, who is an Aggie, I might add, just. And then the one thing that really irritated me was the Kittle touchdown. Right? Did you see this play?
Okay.
So they run. They're running a pick.
I was in snooze land by this point.
So they're running a pick play, and it is the 49ers receiver. It's not a like kind of bumps the Cowboys defender trying to cover Kittle. He basically runs full force right into him, and the two refs throw a flag, and then they decide to go talk about it. And of course, anytime they go talk about it, this is a problem. So they end up taking the flag off. They show the replay, and then, of course, the network official guy who's basically in line with all the other officials and basically is there to not talk too bad about him. Is like, oh, yeah, that's actually the right call. It's a horrendous.
Right,
and, like, that's probably not the reason they lose the game, but it's just like instead of being third and long or third and goal from 10 yards deeper, it's a touchdown. And so the officials are bad. I'm done with these officials. So, they fought back. The problem is Dak. The offense still has no running game. Like, they have nothing. Dalvin Cook did not tear it up on the field this week. He did not cook. Dalvin microwaved. I think he had 6 carries for 12 yards.
I thought I saw my cousin scored a touchdown.
He did. He actually had a couple of good runs, but he's still. I mean, just the running game. The running game is dead. Yeah. Dak's not taking care of the ball is the real problem here. And I don't know if he's trying to do too much. If he's like, he understands that there's so many people out on defense that he worries, but he's just kind of like last year he protected the ball really well, and then. The year before that, he had all those he led the league in turnovers, but a lot of those interceptions it was like tip balls or the ball took weird bounces when he threw it or things like that happened. So he had those kind of turnovers.
Yep.
This year, it's just like, I want to throw we got 1st and 10. We just crossed over into 49ers territory. I want to throw a YOLO ball to Kevontae Turpin on a go route. I don't understand it. The play calling's not good, and then it's just the offense is a mess, and we have nobody on defense to kind of help keep games close. So I don't know.
So before we move on from this game, let me just ask this: because this again, I go back to the Rich Eisen show. They brought this up. What you're not in favor of firing McCarthy at this point?
No,
right?
I don't see any point to it. Like, what are you gonna what's the best case scenario? Like, they've gotten through like probably the worst part of their schedule anyway, so you're probably gonna have slightly better results anyway, just based on the schedule. And so like the best case scenario then is like who the offensive coordinator is, the guy that was formerly the Seattle offensive Brian Schottenheimer.
Correct.
Yeah, so you bring him in to run the offense, and then he runs the offense, and then Mike Zimmer takes over as coach. Like, I don't want if they don't win this year, if they take a step back, I would rather just them clean house and bring in somebody new.
Yeah, that's kind of where Rich Eisen landed. He's like, if you fire him now, you're firing your play caller also. So if you're going to do that, to your point, you might as well do it cleanly at the end of the season, and then you can bring somebody new in, and to exactly what you just said.
You don't even have to fire him because like his contract's up. Like then it's just and then it's like, okay, let's move on. We're done here.
Yeah, it's not you, it's me. All right. Last game of the week here, Monday Night Football, presented by Tommy Maddox. Steelers 26, Giants 18. As I mentioned earlier, I watched basically the first quarter of this game at the bar, and that was about it.
I tuned in.
I
tuned in until my fantasy team had confirmed the loss, which was done by Calvin Austin, Memphis legend, returning a punt for a touchdown.
Yeah. The third, right? Calvin Austin, the third. What was I say? Yeah, I saw some of the highlights. Look, I was kind of critical of, or I was wondering why they changed from Fields to Russ, and actually Fields was, I think, inactive for this game. They right before the game, it came out that he was technically the emergency third string quarterback behind Kyle Allen, A&M legend Kyle Allen, which felt weird. But look, I mean, give Russ credit. Russ did what he had to do, and looks like him and Pickens have kind of a chemistry going. So
Pittsburgh's not a bad team, right?
No, I mean, look, I'm not going to doubt Tomlin. I mean, like and by the way, did you see him catching the camera at one point?
No,
he basically did the Halpert. He basically did the Jim Halpert. Like the camera was on him, and he turned and like directly to the camera and did like a thumbs up. I'm surprised it was on Twitter. It was the GIF of the week on Twitter.
I think once the Cowboys game went south, I tend to avoid Twitter for a couple of days after, because
Cowboys Twitter,
it basically we basically turn on each other and devour each other like praying mantises.
Yeah, Saints Twitter right now is basically we're all kind of in the why is Dennis Allen still our coach?
Oh, that's
bucket,
always fun.
So. All right, so that does it for recapping Week 8. Brandon.
Yes.
You feel a draft coming
draft.
I feel a draft. Let's change tables.
Get out of here. We have a booth.
Okay. So this really came out of a joke. We mentioned earlier, we talked about the Anthony Richardson thing. I think it was Sunday night or Monday night, I retweeted his quote of, I'm not going to lie. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I was tired. And I said, this week on the show, we're going to draft things he should have said instead. Spoil
better excuses.
Anything. Yeah, that's what it was. Better excuses. So, you define how we want to do this.
Yeah, so I figure we'll just take, like we said, things that better excuses for why he came out of the game, right?
I'm gonna let you go first. I feel like this is gonna end up. Did you ever watch David Letterman when he was
like
on?
a top 10 sort of list.
Yeah, I feel like that's what this is gonna be. This is gonna be me like, all right, number 10.
Exactly right.
So I'll try to come up with a few, but I'm gonna cheat off of you. I'm gonna cheat off of you, I think.
All right. And so, for the first pick, I'm going to take. He didn't know better. Should he not have done that? He's got to plead ignorance on this one.
Yeah, I was hoping. I was really like over the last couple of days. I was like just trying to think of Seinfeld related. I don't know if this is going to be one of them, but maybe he saw there was a fire. In the stadium.
Yeah.
It's like, so I'll make that my pick. He saw smoke, and he didn't want any of that smoke.
He did not want any of that smoke.
And then I don't know if this is an excuse. Well, no, this is an excuse, but I was going to throw this out there. I'm wondering if George gave him before his post-game press conference, if he said, "Hey, remember, Anthony, it's not a lie if you believe it."
The problem is that he just told it. I guess he figured he couldn't lie.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess what's a better excuse than I'm tired? I mean, just pull the old Miss trick and just fake an injury. Like just say, "Oh yeah,
lost the contact."
Yeah, something like just.
All right, so I've got two picks here. I've got a couple.
If you have more than 4, I might just steal whatever you don't.
There we go. I'm going to say he is in fact Batman, and I'm very sorry. I just saw the bat signal.
What about one too? Earlier, I was I don't know what made me think of that one earlier, but okay, I'm glad you. Good for you. I'm glad you got that one.
All right, and so for my next pick, I'm going to take. He ordered the Clams Casino. Chef recommends.
Okay, so I guess in the spirit of that one, maybe he had to go to the bathroom, like couldn't find a good bathroom before.
He didn't have George's he needed George's location.
Right, he needed George's eye toilet. You know in Curb Your Enthusiasm that becomes a plot line.
No,
right?
I did not know that.
So in the season of Curb Your Enthusiasm where they do the Seinfeld reunion, in the reunion episode, George has developed this app called the iToilet, which is basically like
toilet locator.
Tells you what right, a toilet, yeah. So they brought that back in that. And then, yeah, for the last one, thank you for the assist on this one. Remember he had to tutor his nephew. What was that?
That is
one
from
the
mail-in bonding one where he's trying to get out of the tickets with Joel.
Right. Oh, that actually reminds me. Well, you do your last pick, and then remind me of something that I was just reminded of.
All right, I'm going to actually pull another one from the same episode that I referenced earlier with the bat signal. I'm going to say He had a bus transfer that was about to expire.
Oh my gosh. So what I was just reminded of. So to get to and from the hotel in Nashville, I used the service Uber, right? And it reminded me of, remember the episode where Elaine takes the car service, pretends to be deaf,
Yes.
so she doesn't have to talk to the guy. I was like, man, I thought about that because like the driver I had to the airport on Sunday, to the hotel on Sunday, wasn't like overly talkative, but he's like, hey, I've lived here for 20 years, and like all this stuff that you're seeing over here was not here like 20 years, like kind of like sightseeing,
like a tour guide,
type.
basically.
Yeah. Nothing, nothing like how's your family type talk. But yeah, I thought about that because when she's like, and then I forget something happened because I remember her saying,
"Oh, I love
Tom Hanks," right? Because
that's it.
And the driver's like, and Tom Hanks would also find that disgusting or some of your behavior. All right, so there's a little fun draft. Maybe next week we can do. I had thought about doing Super Bowl winners, or
that's a good one.
Something along those lines. So we'll noodle on that for next week, but
something different for this one.
Right.
All right, let's get into this week's matchups. Before we do that, though, we've got a couple of teams on a bye. Steelers, their bye is brought to you by Ike Taylor, defensive back from 2003 to 2014.
That's right, product of the University of Louisiana. He was, he played, as you just said, played in the league for 12 years, made a good name for himself. And then the other team on a bye is the San Francisco 49ers, and their bye is brought to you by one of my favorite names ever, Jim Druckenmiller. First-round pick out of, I would think it was Virginia Tech, 1997. He only played in the league 2 years. So you talk about a bust.
Whoa.
Like,
he only played in the NFL for 2 years. He also played in the XFL for the Memphis Maniacs.
Jeez.
I don't know if I've ever shown you this, but I actually have a Memphis Maniacs T-shirt.
Was this the original iteration?
This is the
of
original, late 90s,
like
with Tommy Maddox.
They lasted 2 or yeah. Wow.
So there we go. So you went with one player who was a very good player, really good defensive back, and then you went with another player who was terrible.
The storied history, like think about the 49ers, right? The storied history of all these players. Well, because you can't use Montana, you can't use Rice, you can't use Steve Young.
Right.
You can maybe use Roger Craig.
You can't use Ricky Waters.
Ricky Running Waters. Ricky Jackson was a Saint. Most of his, so we can have a little fun here.
Yeah, there we go. So those two off the board. Now we move to Thursday. We've got our Halloween game, which does not feature the Cincinnati Bengals for some reason. What are we even doing out here? We have Ed Reed brings you Texans, Jets. Jets are favored by 0.5 point, which, given how bad they are, I think this goes back to what we've talked about. It's just the Texans are unimpressive, and I guess we keep expecting the Jets to turn it around at some point.
Yeah, talk about a game. A game fit for Halloween, because this might be Yamahama. It is Friday night. I don't know what the weather's supposed to be like in New Jersey. Hopefully it's at least decent. Where
would you
some offense?
Would you like to hear something funny?
Good,
so the ESPN line on this game is Jets minus 0.5 point. So basically a pick 'em. The line is now Jets minus 2 to 2.5. You can actually.
Why? The Jets minus 2?
Texans plus 2. You can get Texans plus 2.5. You can actually get Jets minus 1.5. So maybe the Diggs injury's in there.
That's what I was going to say. It's probably the Diggs. It's probably the ACL, the Diggs injury, and then Nico. I don't think Nico's
Not
back yet. So I mean, the best receiver for the Texans is Tank Dell, and he's injury prone as well. Yeah. So look, I think this might be a Joe Mixon game. Like we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Like I feel like if they just maybe run the ball with Mixon, or and just try to keep Stroud out of like having to run for his life, and especially against the Jets defense, which is aggressive.
Well, how well are the Jets going to be able to protect Rodgers is the question too. Like on the other side of the ball, like their offensive line's bad, and the Texans have two really good pass rushers. I don't know. Like I'm going to take the Texans here just based on that and what.
Oh yeah. I'm off the Jets. Like I'm at the point where it's like if you're the Jets and you want me to like pick you,
like
you
the Panthers,
have to show me something. That, yeah.
All right, Sunday early, we'll kick it off with LaRon Robinson. Cowboys versus Falcons. Falcons at home, laying 2.5 points.
Can you quickly remind me what position LaRon Robinson
He was a wide
played?
receiver. He played with the Cowboys for 1 year. Had about 800 yards receiving, and then I want to say he caught double-digit touchdowns with Tony Romo.
Okay.
And like I wanted him to bring him back because it seemed like him and Romo, like when Romo would when plays would break down and Romo needed an option, like they had sort of a connection.
Yeah.
But the thing was, Jacksonville threw a bunch of money at him, and so he went and signed with him. Okay, he had 80 targets, 54 receptions for 858 yards and 11 touchdowns in 14 games with the Cowboys in 2011. And then Jacksonville paid him, and he had 252 yards and no touchdowns in that season. So congrats to him for getting the bag.
Yeah. So obviously, big game for your boys.
I think this is going to be a better side. Like we played San Francisco, and they're like a tough team for us. We're shorthanded. I think we're still going to be shorthanded this week. Deron Bland might come back. We might get Carson back, but I don't know that we're going to get Micah back. And Lawrence is still on IR. And so I think this is going to if we're able to, if we win this game, I'll feel a lot better about us going forward. If not, then it's probably time to shut it down.
And for the Falcons, like we talked about earlier, the division's all but wrapped up at this point. They've played 4 of their 6 division games and they've won them all. So
they're in good shape.
You feel good. But now for them, it's more about can we advance our seeding in the NFC in total. We're both laying the 2.5 with the Falcons here, but I think for the I kind of compare this game for the Cowboys almost to that Pittsburgh game, where it's like you kind of, the one thing I'll say with you guys missing Micah, at least with Cousins, he's kind of a statue back there. So you might be able to get some pressure on him. I mean, the Falcons' offensive line's pretty good.
Maybe you could send like a couple extra guys, or kind of like.
Yeah. I mean, Mike Zimmer's supposed to be like a defensive.
Well, they did some stuff in the first half last week that actually looked good, but then I think it was kind of a situation where they ran out of manpower, and then your safeties couldn't cover. Like their safety play this year has been really bad, and that's been an issue. So I think this will be a calibrator for how I feel about the rest of the season going forward.
Yeah, because after this, it's Eagles, right?
Yep.
So, yeah. All right, the late, great Sam Mills, Hall of Famer Sam Mills, presents Saints at Panthers. Panthers are at home getting 6.5 points. I'm definitely taking those points. Look, I mean, I think I said it a couple of weeks ago on the show. I said Panthers are going to beat the Saints. Now that was when Dalton was playing. If Dalton's playing, I feel pretty confident the Panthers can win. If it's Bryce Young,
and
I don't know. It would be really funny though if this is like the game that Bryce Young figures it out. You know what I mean? Like they just traded their best receiver. You know, they're definitely playing for next year. Carolina.
They're playing for a few years down the road at this point.
Yeah. I mean, it's really amazing that they're probably going to take a quarterback in the first round next year. Or at least it's looking like that. So, and for Bryce Young, maybe the best thing for him right now is to get out of Carolina. Like, I know there were teams
like Sam Darnold, Geno Smith. You get out of that situation, you're able to kind of like grow a little bit more. Yeah. Maybe that's the best outcome for him.
This is the team. They had Darnold and Baker Mayfield at the same time, and now So yeah, I'm taking the 6.5.
I'm laying the 6.5 contingent on a few things. I think if Dalton plays, I'll probably switch over. I'm not going to take. There's no. You'd have to give me like 10 play, like double digits, 2 touchdowns for me to take any points with Bryce Young at this point. Especially with Carr coming back. Maybe also if Rattler was playing. Like if Rattler's the starter this week, then I would probably also swap over to Carolina. I just think the fact that they traded their best receiver now at this point, like I don't see.
Yeah. Now my fear, I don't say fear might be the wrong way to say it, but if Carr comes back, they win this game. Now we're kind of getting into the false hope season. Let's say they win this game. They have Atlanta next week. They win that game. So now they're 4-6. And, maybe they start putting, and then Cleveland comes in. Okay, maybe they do that. Then it becomes like, well, I guess Dennis Allen's not getting fired.
They keep pulling me back in.
But like I said a couple weeks ago, look, I'm a Saints fan. I'm going to be there to watch them Sunday one way or the other. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Next game, we got Elvis Dumerville presents Broncos versus Ravens. Ravens laying 9.5 points. I'm going to lay the points here. Just I think I know this isn't your usual Ravens defense, but I would like to think that they can do enough to kind of put Bo Nix back and kind of confuse him, unsettle him a little bit. And so I would, especially with Baltimore coming off that like ugly loss, like I want to think they're going to try to bounce back. I know Denver's defense is really good, but I just think that they'll be able to do enough to keep Bo Nix from, being efficient in this one.
Yeah, really interested to see if Denver's defense can contain Lamar and Derrick Henry. Don't know if Deontay Johnson's going to play this week since he just
if he does anything, it'd probably be like limited, like specific plays, right?
Right. I'm taking the 9.5. I mean, 9.5 is a lot of points. I'll probably regret it, but I don't know. This Broncos team, there's something about them. Like they've got some kind of. But we saw. Look, all it takes is just a couple plays here and there, right? Like if the Ravens.
If something goes wrong.
Yeah, I mean, like on paper, this feels like this should be the Buffalo game from earlier in the season, right? It's in Baltimore. You've got the Broncos coming in off a win against a
crummy team,
Panthers team, a bad team. Broncos are probably feeling pretty good about themselves after beating the Saints and the Panthers. So, yeah, we'll see. I think this will be if you're the Ravens, this is definitely when you not only want to win, but you want to win big, just to kind of get your mojo back. All right, Thurman Thomas, Oklahoma State great Thurman Thomas, I believe.
I will check you on that while you
believe he was an OK State Cowboy. He is presenting Dolphins at Bills. Bills are at home in Buffalo, laying the 6.5. We're both taking the 6.5, and I think a lot of this probably, I think the Tua factor is in play here, right? Obviously, the first game was in Miami. It was that Thursday night game. Tua got hurt. Real scary stuff. So hopefully he just get through the game unscathed, as it were. For Buffalo, yeah, look, you're 4 games in the win column ahead of everybody in your division. I mean, if the Jets lose on Thursday night, and we're getting to the territory where Buffalo could clinch this division before Thanksgiving. like seriously. So yeah, if you're Buffalo, yeah, like we talked about earlier, just keep on keeping on, just win the games in front of you, and maybe
try to stay healthy.
Maybe you fall into a 1 seed, and Kansas City's got to come to your place. Well, they have to come to their place here in a couple of weeks, but you know what I mean, for the playoffs and whatnot. So
the Dolphins just feels like it's going to be contingent on Tua, right? Their whole team is built on that.
I honestly wouldn't be shocked if Miami wins this game.
Divisional games are always weird,
just
right?
Because, right. We're in that weird part of the season where, we saw it this past week, right, with all the weirdness that went on.
Right.
So, but yeah, we're both taking the 6.5.
All right. Carson Palmer presents Raiders versus Bengals. Bengals laying 7.5. Don't know how with that defense can conscionably lay those points. I'm going to take the Raiders in the points. I think you are too.
Yeah, it's going to be Minshew.
Minshew mania
in this one. Minshew mania is O'Connell. He's out for.
He's got a broken bone, right?
His thumb. He's a broken thumb, but he's not out for the season.
So. I don't think it was surgery. I don't think he needed surgery for it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Raiders plus 7.5 here for me. It's really weird to hear like the Antonio Pierce getting fired talk. I get the Brady factor now. Now that Brady's party owner and he's going to have a lot of say. And the rumor I heard somebody put forward yesterday or the day before was, what if they hired Dion as the coach and drafted Shador?
Oh, I like this idea.
And it's like,
that would be that is a 100% Raiders move. Like that is so on brand.
Yeah. Breaking news into Dem Boyz. Congratulations to the Los Angeles Dodgers for winning the World Series. I'm assuming Freddie Freeman is going to be MVP. I don't know if he hit another home run tonight, but we'll keep you posted here if we get any word before we sign off for the evening. So Dodgers win. What number of World Series
number
is
8
for them?
Yep.
8? Good for them. Sorry, Yankees fans. Well, no, I'm not that sorry, I guess.
Yeah, you got to feel sorry for George Costanza, traveling assistant to the Jets, traveling secretary.
That's true. All right, moving along. So, we're both going Raiders plus 7.5 there. Moving along, Charlie Whitehurst.
Clipboard Jesus.
There we go. I knew it was Jesus in there somewhere. He presents Chargers at the now resurgent Cleveland Browns.
The Browns with a functioning offense.
Because think about that. Let's be honest. If Deshaun Watson was still the quarterback, there's no way this line is plus
absolutely
1.5. Not. Look, the Chargers' offense is a little bit. I don't know if I say limited, but because Herbert, it still feels it's really weird. It almost feels like they're waiting to unleash.
I think they've started to lean into it a little more. Like they started the season out running a lot, but over the past few weeks, their pass rates kind of ticked back up more.
Yeah, and him and McConkey feel like they have kind of a chemistry there.
I think you mean Steve Smith. The white Steve Smith, right?
I have a quick Steve Smith story. When I was in college and I was in the marching band, and we got to perform at halftime of a Saints game, and they were playing the Panthers. This is in 2008. Yeah, 2008. No, this is 2007. We get to the Superdome. We're warming up. We're in the end zone, getting ready to warm up, and I look behind me and I see this guy stretching in the end zone, and on his shorts it read 89 Smith. It was Steve Smith.
Right.
And as short as people talk about it, like, he really was that short. Like, and I mean, obviously he didn't have his pads on or anything, but like, yeah, it was really.
He's not a tall
cool
fella.
No, but he was. I mean, he was. I'd say he's probably one of the more underrated receivers.
Yeah, he gets pretty good. I feel like people respect him pretty well.
Yeah, but I mean, I think when he was playing, because he was in Carolina, and they always had kind of a rotating. Like, he had DeLone for a while, then he had Cam.
Did he play with Vinny Testaverde?
Yeah, I think Testaverde was kind of a bridge quarterback at one point.
He was Carolina in 2007. That seems like it would line up with Steve Smith.
Yeah, that would have been that season, because the game I was at, the game I performed at, DeLone was injured. I don't remember who started at that game. Might have been Derek Anderson, maybe.
No, that's a name.
Yeah. Anyway, getting back to Chargers.
I like how we just went off on a random tangent about.
Yeah. Yep. You called Vlad McConkey the white Steve Smith.
Go.
So. Chargers -1.5. We're both laying those points. Yeah, this just feels like look. I'm all for the Browns making a run and like winning 4 or 5 in a row. But I think the Chargers will. Now, we should point out, West Coast team going east. It's noon kickoff, right? Noon Eastern kickoff. Doesn't always work in their favor. I think the Chargers have done that twice this year already. They did back-to-back weeks. I forget what the games were, and I want to say they won both. They won at least one.
One of them with the against the. Didn't we have the Harbaugh Bowl?
We didn't have it yet. I think we're going to have it here in a couple weeks.
They played at Pittsburgh. That was it. Oh, they played Carolina and Pittsburgh. So.
Right, they beat Carolina and then they lost Pittsburgh.
They lost 20-10.
Yeah, that was that hard fought. Yeah, that they were swapping.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
All right. Next up, Jeff Hostetler presents the Commanders versus the Giants. Giants at home, getting 2.5. I'm gonna take the Commies here. I don't feel good about it.
The gift that comes to mind is the one of Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad, where he says they can't keep getting away with this. Like, the Commanders can't keep getting away with this, right? Like, eventually they're going to lose a game that just kind of a head scratcher. So, and like we said before, divisional games get weird. And so this feels like, and look, we've talked about it before. The Giants are not a bad team. Like, they've got pieces.
Their defense, especially, right? Like, that's where they're.
Yeah, I mean, and so maybe this is the game. And if Daniels is still kind of ailing from that rib injury, with a good defense like the Giants have, and then maybe they can on offense they can kind of control. I know they don't. Well, they do have a running game with Tyrone Tracy.
Yeah, Tracy's
now,
looked
right?
good, right?
So maybe they can control the clock. Keep Daniels off the field. I don't know what the weather's going to be like in. So yeah, 2 games in MetLife this week. They got the one tomorrow night with the Jets, and then this one on Sunday. with the Giants. So, yeah, but I'm going to take the Giants. I'm going to take the 2.5. You're laying the 2.5, so we're head-to-head on this one.
Next one we are not head-to-head on. The Visante Shenko presents...
That's
That's
a name.
Patriots versus Titans. Titans at home laying 2.5. I assume, I haven't heard anything on the Drake yet. Anything?
Yeah, I didn't even really consider that. This was more of, for me, again, the Titans defense is really good. So no matter who the quarterback is, especially if it's Brissett, because he's a statue. But with the Drake, he can at least kind of move around. Again, with the Titans, it's the same story of if they have competent.
Yeah, please don't tell me that Will Levis is starting this, or I will quickly flip back to a.
Well, didn't Callahan come out a couple weeks ago and say, "Look, the purpose of this season is to figure out what we have in Will Levis"?
I think you figured it out.
Yeah, I mean, which I appreciate. I appreciate his honesty. Again, much like Anthony Richardson, maybe you should
try lying.
Try lying, yeah. So, yeah, we're both going Titans minus 2.5 there. Let's move on to the late schedule here. We've got 4 games in the late window. So that'll be easy multi-view going on there. Antrell Roll presents Bears at Cardinals. Cardinals are laying 1.5. If I remember correctly, Bears-Cardinals was the Monday night game years back. The famous Dennis Green. We let him off the hook.
They are who we thought they were.
Rest in peace, Dennis Green. He was.
You know what my favorite part of that clip is, or favorite part of that. So he goes on this whole spiel, slamming the podium, and then he storms off, and then the I guess the press guy or whoever's he's in charge of running the press conference steps over to the podium and he goes, "Thanks, coach." It's just complete.
I never saw that.
It's like thanks, coach.
It's like a can't skip. It's just like a Chappelle show.
Exactly. It's just no complete disregard for what just happened. It's all right, let's get back on schedule here.
Okay, so for the Cardinals, 49ers are off this week. The Seahawks are playing each other. We'll talk about that game in a minute. So this is kind of a big game for them. If they win this and they're 5-4, they're going to be guaranteed a game up on San Francisco, and technically they're 2 games up because they beat them already. And whoever loses the Rams-Seahawks game is going to be, they probably would root for the Rams because the Rams would then have 4 wins, and the Seahawks would have 4 wins. And again, the Cardinals beat the Rams, I believe.
Yes, they did
already. Yeah. So, yeah. Look. Hey, let's go, man. Maybe banning for the Bears again. Another opportunity to prove you can beat a team that has more than one win.
And I will say that the thing here is the Cardinals defense is not good, so at least maybe that makes it a little easier for Caleb Williams. I'm gonna take the points, take the dog here, just based on I'm basing the Cardinals are kind of they're so all over the place, right? And it's not just game to game. It's even in game, they're kind of what am I getting from this team? And I think I'm just gonna lean into something where I feel a little bit more certain about what the team is, and so take the Bears here.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Next up, we got Hugh Douglas presents Jaguars versus Eagles. This game was flexed out of the Sunday night spot. I can't imagine why.
I'll give you a few reasons.
All right, the Eagles are laying 7.5. We are both laying the points here. We are out on the Jaguars, aren't we, Paul?
Well, this is the Doug Peterson
game,
right?
I would love for Doug Peterson to get his revenge here.
Boy, this would be something. I mean, look. Before last week, I almost picked the Jags for my upset pick. last week against Green Bay? Because we talked about it. We were like, Green Bay's going to Jacksonville. Green Bay's coming off a close win at home against Houston. Like, all the elements were there for the Jaguars to get that win, and they just couldn't. They just couldn't pull it off. I mean, at some point, the Jags got to put a game together, right? And I don't know. I'm laying the points. I'm laying the 7. It actually is more to help jinx the Eagles for your sake.
That's what I like to hear.
But I mean, and the Eagles' defense is gettable, right? I mean,
I think that they played a little better, but I think they played a little better. I think, but not.
Yeah, well, against Cincinnati, yeah, they forced. They had that one turnover where I think it was Mitchell knocked the ball into Gardner Johnson's hands on that pass on the sideline that Burrow threw. But yeah, this actually, I feel like this game could end up looking a lot like that Cincinnati game for Philly, where maybe Jacksonville hangs in there first half, maybe into the third quarter, and then Philly just kind of
runs away with it eventually.
Runs away with it. Yeah. So, yeah, both laying the points there.
All right. So next up, we've got TJ Lang presents Lions versus the Packers in an NFC North clash of the Titans. Packers are getting 4.5 points at home. You and I are both on the Packers plus 4.5, and I think this will be a question of what's Jordan. If Jordan Love's not playing, that's going to make things a little bit more difficult. But I think this should lend itself to some pretty decent offensive fireworks, right?
Depending on weather, because it is outdoors in Green Bay. But I don't think the weather's supposed to be bad. Just checking real quick to see if we have any. I mean, this is a battle for first place, right?
That's correct.
Green Bay wins, they're in first place. If Detroit wins, then they kind of widen their lead. I want to say this is Detroit's first division game.
No,
of the season.
They beat the Vikings.
Oh, right. They just played the Minnesota. Correct. Yeah, they just played that Minnesota. That was their first one. So Detroit's schedule kind of like Pittsburgh, where they're kind of backloaded with their division games. So yeah, I think this is one of those games where you're not going to really know a lot about either team when you come out of it. You just kind of hope it's a game. I mean, unless Detroit just goes in there and just
continues just rolling like they've been the past month.
On folks, and again, the love. Now, here's going to be the interesting thing. Let's play hypothetical here, because I told this to my friend who's a Packers fan. If Love is not 100% healthy, you do not play him in this game. You're playing for down the road, right? And you're not going to risk. I mean, I know it's an important game, but take a loss in October when it could mean you win in January.
Yeah, and that's kind of like what I didn't understand, unrelated to this game, is why the Bucs sent Mike Evans back out there with that bum ham. What are you doing? You got to play long. You're playing for the long game here.
Same thing, but here's the wrinkle. Malik Willis starts this game and the Packers win, and Willis plays like he's been playing. Not spectacular, but does enough to where, I mean, then it's do we need to have a conversation? Do we I don't think we do.
Not with that contract.
No. I think this is more. I look at this more as the season for the. Again, I know I compare a lot of things to the Saints because that's just my point of reference. But the year when Breeze got hurt and Teddy Bridgewater was the backup, Bridgewater came in and won 5 games, 5-0 as a starter. We all know who the quarterback is. So it's so if nothing else, Malik Willis is going to make himself some money.
And that's what Dallas did with Cooper Rush a couple seasons ago. Dak got injured in the first game of the season. Cooper Rush comes in, goes, I think 4-1 as a starter, and then and then what you've got at least. I mean, they were able to keep Cooper Rush around at least, but
they gave poor Skip Bayless a I didn't believe because he was
Skip
like,
Bayless. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to something more pleasant.
yeah, sure.
Kurt Warner, not that Kurt Warner. Kurt with a C presents Rams versus Seahawks. Seahawks at home laying half a point. You and I are both on the Rams here.
Yeah, I think that this is the two teams going in opposite directions, right? Rams are getting healthy. Cup, Nakua, Stafford looks as good as he's ever been, I would say. Their defense, the Rams defense is young. They've got Verse. Verse is in the discussion for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Braden Fisk. I know they were shopping Tre'Davious White, the corner.
Tre'Davious White. Who else did he play for? Because he has not always been with the Rams, has he?
He's an LSU alum, but I don't remember who he was playing for prior to the Rams. For Seattle.
Buffalo.
Yeah, that's right. Again, we talked about, so depending on what happens in the Bears-Cardinals game, this game becomes that much more significant. If you're Seattle, you want to keep pace with the Cardinals for sure. And again, as we said, the 49ers are off this week. So there's a scenario that plays out here where the Rams come out of this maybe in first place because they win, they're 4-4. Cardinals lose, they're 4-5. Seahawks would be 4-5 because the Rams would have beat them.
49ers are still 4-4.
But the Rams beat the 49ers, so now the Rams are in first place.
Just like that, right?
Mess. So it's ridiculous. I mean, think about this. Like a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the Rams maybe selling pieces, like trading Cooper Kupp and maybe trading Stafford. And now here we are, and we're talking about them being in first place in the division.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. All right, moving on here. Sunday Night Football. The game that got flexed into Sunday Night Football is brought to you by and Anthony Richardson 1.0, Josh Freeman. He presents Colts Vikings. This is in Minnesota. Vikings are laying 5.5.
I'm kind of. Are you surprised that this is the game that got flexed in?
Yeah. I mean, look. I mean, obviously the one Lions Packers would have been the choice here, but I think
obviously it's probably a situation where we have a certain number of we have this game. We are protecting that. You go pick something else, and this is we get Joe Flacco in prime time again.
Hey, how about that? I mean, the only other option, look into the options here, you could have done Broncos Ravens, maybe. Cowboys Falcons.
Can you keep me out of prime time for once? We've been enough.
Yeah, that would have been 2 weeks in a row, right, for the Cowboys. Rams Seahawks wouldn't have been bad.
That's a good one.
Bears Cardinals would have been terrible.
Kyler versus Caleb.
Yeah.
We're on opposite sides on this one.
Yeah, I'm going Colts plus 5.5. I strongly considered, let me check before I say anything. I strongly considered making the Colts my upset pick. Again, it's the Flacco factor, right? Well, it's the Flacco factor, and it's the Vikings potentially continuing their slide, right?
And doing what they did that one time they were 5-0. Last time they were 5-0, and completely
fell apart. Yeah. Yeah. Look, I'm not saying I wish this for the Vikings, but it's smells like it, acts like it, probably is it. So yeah,
I just like to think that the coaching here, because the two games they've lost is the Thursday short week. They lost to the Lions, and they were competitive. Like the Lions kicked a field goal to win that game. I'd like to think that the coaching will win out here. The offense kind of gets back on track, and you've got, an aggressive defense against the quarterback who's mentally still probably got it, but physically, isn't going to run away from anything at this point, right?
You're talking
Flacco,
about
yeah,
Flacco
in this situation.
I just have this thought. So we talked about the Chiefs and the Lions kind of finding ways to win every week. If you're the Vikings, you have to develop that skill. You have to develop that skill to find those ways to win.
They just haven't done that yet.
They just haven't done that yet. Yes, I mean, look, we talked about the Rams game. If that penalty, if you call that penalty instead of, they still have to go 90 yards to tie it or to. Yeah,
that wasn't like it. They don't automatically win.
Because it was, where was it? It was 28-20 at that point.
You still need the 2-point conversion.
Just look, like I said, if you're the Vikings, find a way to win this game, and you're okay. And if you're the Colts, again, the Texans are at the Jets, so I guess.
Stroud hasn't been great on the road either, so there's that kind of factor too.
But if the Texans stumble, and now again the Colts are up against it because they've lost both games to the Texans, but you can still be in the mix.
All right, Monday night game. Anthony Becht, legendary tight end, brings us Buccaneers at the Chiefs. Chiefs laying 8.5. You and I both expect the Chiefs to keep doing what they do and not cover the spread. Yeah. We're taking the Bucs plus 8.5, even without.
Yeah, I learned my lesson about not taking the points with the Chiefs, but if it's laying the points, that's a different story. So yeah, and I think, look, I still think the Bucs. I still think Baker's got a little bit of I don't want to say magic in him, but he's got a little bit of something in him that he can piece this together. He can get this kind of back on track, and if they can get their running game going with Irving and Rashad White and Sean Tucker, who, of course, again, had 130 yards against the Saints, and he's done next to anything since. But
it looks like, from what I see, it looks like Evans will not play in this game either.
Yeah, if I was Tampa, I hate to say you try to see what you can do without him, but, why rush him back, right? Like, because the division might be out of reach at this point for them, but they're still kind of in that murky water of wild card.
Especially since you've already lost to Atlanta twice already.
You've lost to Atlanta twice. Their best win is they beat Detroit. They're Detroit's only loss.
Yep.
Right. So.
That's not a bad. That's a pretty good win to be fair.
Think about this. If they beat the Chiefs, they would be Detroit's only loss and Kansas City's only loss.
Yeah, it's not too shabby.
That's not bad. Yeah, that's something. That's a feather in your cap. All right, that does it for the weekly previews. Excuse me. Let's move on to Georgia's getting upset.
This is not good. Worlds are colliding. Georgia's getting upset.
What do you got for your upset pick of the week?
All right, I'm going to take the rookie quarterback, Caleb Williams. Kind of going to go out.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Bill.
Whoa. I'm going to take the Bears to upset the Cardinals on the road this week. Who you got, Paul?
This is kind of a, I don't know. This isn't really going out too much on a limb. It's only a 0.5 spread. But I'm going Rams over Seahawks.
I can see that.
Yeah. And
for your lock? Who gets for your lock?
Oh, Jerry, it's a lock. Kramer, you've had this thing under control for almost 3 years now.
For Jerry, it's a lock. I'm going to go, again, this is partially to help you by jinxing the Eagles. I'll go Eagles over Jags. It didn't work What was that last
Yeah,
week?
last week I had the Eagles as my upset pick, and that did not work out for me. Well, it worked out in the sense that I got the upset pick correct.
I had them for the lock against the Giants.
That's
I
right.
think. It didn't work. Yeah, so it's got to work.
It's got to work at some point. You jinxed the Bears. Why
Wow.
couldn't you have jinxed the Commanders there?
I apologize to Andy and Maya for that. My good friends. So who's your lock?
All right, I'm gonna take the Ravens up against Bo Nix. I'm gonna go with for my upset. I'm going with a rookie quarterback, and on this one, I'm betting against him. I'm gonna take the Ravens over the Broncos.
Ravens are gonna get back on track. All right, that sounds good. All right, anything else for the fine folks before we sign
I think
off?
that's it.
All right, no traveling for me this week, so hopefully
We'll be back to recording on Tuesday.
we'll get back to our regular scheduled programming next week. But until then, happy
And
football.
happy Halloween.
That too.